If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he was cleaning. He cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Malindi.
It is Thursday. We're getting to the tail end of the week. What do the streets have in store for us today? We're looking at traffic already started on Mombasa Road today, and nothing too crazy, just around where the construction is taking place. So now you know what used to be that whole General Motors stretch is being dug up. So there's probably going to be some action there today. The Southern Bypass looking pretty good as we see it right now. Coming off Uhuru Highway, going into the CBD, out into Westlands, not much of an issue. A little bit of a hold up on Outer Ring, and that's then going towards Kariobangi and that whole area. But again, it's at a dull roar. Nothing too crazy at the moment. Let's take a look, see what it looks like in a short while. But for now, easy streets. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
To Kenya's biggest conversation. It is The Situation Room. It is Thursday, the 17th day of February 2022. Siti Muga?
Yes.
Habari.
Habari yangu ni mzuri sana. Yes.
Msalimie dada Ndu.
Dada hujambo.
Hujambo ndugu wangu, how are you?
I am, your ndugu is very well, thank you. Yes, and he's happy that his dada is also well.
Nimepokea salamu kutoka kwa anaitwa nani?
Huyu kaka.
Pastor Eric.
Yes. Huyu.
Mwambie na msalimie pia.
Mchungaji umesalimiwa.
Asante sana. Nimesalimika. Yes. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Today is Thursday. It's Justice Thursday. We'll have conversations surrounding justice, accessing to justice, and the best way to access justice. At 8 a.m., we have the Deputy Registrar in charge of mediation at the judiciary, the Honorable Caroline Kendagor, will be here. So, how does mediation work, and what is mediation all about? Okay. At 7 o'clock, we talk about Udumacad. Yes?
We do.
The NIIMS, National Integrated Information Management System. Now, the man who is heading the Udumacad, the senior administrator at the National Integrated Information Management System, in the Ministry of Interior, Philip Lemarasia, will be here with us. And he'll be joined by a lady who is from which country, city? Estonia. Her name is Sylvia Lips. She's Sylvia Lips. She's a PhD student in the Department of Software Science at Tallinn University of Technology. And it's Tallinn or Tallinn? Talltech. So, borrowing from the experience of the Estonians in getting them all their services digitized, and seeing whether we are actually getting towards that in this country. A case challenging the implementation and rollout of Huduma number by some civil society organization was withdrawn from the Court of Appeal by the appellants because they said, this case is taking too long to commence. The government is already rolling out this thing. We withdraw.
It's going to happen anyway.
Anyway, so we'll have that conversation at 7 o'clock just to understand Huduma number. And hopefully this time City will be convinced to go and apply for Huduma number. Let's start a conversation on COVID. Let's look at the numbers.
Let's do it. We're looking at increased numbers around the world. Britain, the UK, 54,000 new cases of COVID just yesterday. We're looking at world numbers now at 418,072,646. This is at a time where the countries in the former Great Britain, or rather the former United Kingdom, Scotland, Wales, as well as Great Britain now, are giving the vaccine to children between the ages of 5 and 11. That was rolled out yesterday.
England.
United
Great
Kingdom.
Britain is all of them.
Yes. United Kingdom, Great Britain.
Yes.
So they've all decided, Wales, Scotland, and then England and Northern Ireland are now giving the vaccine to children between these ages 5 and 11. So there's a whole rollout yesterday, lots of information about what you can or cannot do. And so that has started. Boris Johnson's case still continues. He'll probably get a slap on the wrist and probably be fined a handsome amount for what he did or didn't do at 10 Downing Street over the holidays. All right, let's look at what's happening in Uganda. Uganda has said, you know what? This COVID testing at airport arrivals, forget about it. Right? We've suspended that mandatory COVID-19 testing for all passengers arriving in the country at Entebbe International Airport. Since October last year, all passengers are required to test on arrival whether they had a valid negative PCR test or not. The health ministry said a decline in positive cases has been the reason. This has been identified. And so they said, you know what? At the airport they come, there's also a reduction of the threat of variants of COVID. So this is said, we're going to make this decision based on that. But passengers, whether leaving or coming into Uganda, will be required to have valid negative PCR test paperwork. So have the paperwork, but we're not going to test you at the airport anymore. They are also currently emerging from third wave of cases driven by the Omicron variant. An average of 50 positive cases has been recorded daily in recent weeks, and more than 15 million vaccines doses have been given so far. So they said, you know what? Come. Just come, no problem. So long as you have the documentation, you'll be all right.
Present a negative test.
And that's all we need.
Result.
Even the story of isolation and quarantine once you come in for 10 days in the bin. All right. Let's look at what's happening in Kenya. One recorded death, and this was now from 30 within the last 30 days. 28 new cases, 0.5% is what we are looking at as positivity rate. Good numbers here. Clearly, the wave is in the water. And the numbers are looking pretty good. Still continues to be. There were some more vaccines that came into the country yesterday.
Okay.
I need to look at exactly what those numbers are, but it just means that there's an increase in what's available for folks to go ahead and do. The vaccine rollout that's happening in schools, apparently it's gotten some backlash from parents and saying, yeah, well, that's nice. But again, can we wait and see if we want our children to be vaccinated? That's come up. Some voices have now raised that concern and said it shouldn't be mandatory. We should be asked if we want to have this done or not. So that's about the size of it with COVID.
Okay. Dr. Kivenji Gitahi has started a new conversation. He'll be joining us tomorrow morning at 7. He says, with the declining positivity rate and all, maybe it's time we started talking about removing the mandates on face masking. So yeah, you can wear a mask, but let's remove the mandate.
You know, I'm always fascinated by how conversations change. There was a time when we're supposed to be dropping like flies, just because COVID existed.
Right.
But this is what happens when your decision-making process is actually guided by facts. Because among the things that are also happening right now, Kemri also has come up with their own test kits. And the government is saying, well, we are going to encourage them and support them. Kemri has always had a production capacity because even when it came to HIV test kits, Kemri used to produce.
Yeah.
Yes. So, again, remember we were having this discussion about, vaccines, tests. We've always had the capacity.
Sure.
But as to whether the discussion goes beyond a discussion and reaches the plateau of actualization, this has always been the issue. And this is, if Kemri is doing it now, then it means this is something they could have done
Yonks ago.
Yep.
I don't understand though. When you say that Kemri has started doing test kits, what were they doing before?
This is what he's just saying.
They were not producing
They
it.
were not producing them.
So when those tests were being done at Kemri, they were getting everything.
We were using the kits from other
They
parts
were
of the world.
They were donor kits.
They're donor kits.
Do you
of
remember
ours.
the time there was that whole problem that we were not testing enough? What did Kemri say? They said, well, this is nice. We have some donated kits. We don't have reagents. So that we're also waiting for donation. So you had a government institution, research-wise, that doesn't have... They said this, that they would like to do more, but the funding was an issue. Remember when we also heard about the possibility of them finding other variants in the community, and they took these isolated cases from Mombasa and Isiolo? What was one of the things they said? It's in our minds as a hypothesis, but we can't carry it further because we just don't have the funding. This they could have done many years ago, many months ago, but they just didn't have the muscle in terms of...
I'm saying I'm
financial
confused because I thought I remember a conversation about Cambridge starting to talk about getting their capacity to produce own test kits.
We talked about it, but the actual production hadn't come to the fore. Now it has.
I'll find that article for you because the bone was funding.
In fact, what I'm talking about was yesterday highlighted in the Star, the issue of the test kits that are now available. You see, one of the things that you will find is also prevalent in such matters, departmental infighting. Everyone belongs to the ministry.
Yeah, I remember actually that was an issue. That was the issue.
Yes.
It's 18 after 6, Kenya's biggest conversation. Takes a break to take a look at the weather forecast for the day. Are you online? SpiceFM KE on YouTube and Facebook. We are live streaming, but we're also live on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be taking a roll call shortly. Say hello. Let's recognize and acknowledge your presence this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We've swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There's no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water, or Kamba, lack of traffic. There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 16 today. At 16, Nakuru is cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 14. Cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 13, highs of 28 and lows of 11. While in Eldoret, it's clear at 13. It'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 10. Mostly clear in Mombasa at 24, highs of 33 today. While in Malindi, it's raining in some parts at 26. That'll be today's low, going to highs of 32. In Kisumu, mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's 16 and mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 15. Heavy thunderstorms in Kampala this morning. Going to highs at 27 today. We'll see lows of 19. While it's mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam, a chance of rain at 25. We'll see highs of 32. It's 16 degrees and clear in Johannesburg. 27 will be the high and lows of 15. While mostly clear at 28 in Lagos. It'll go to highs of 33 and lows of 25. In Kinshasa at 23, it's mostly clear. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 23. All right, into Beijing, -5, sunny into Thursday afternoon. We'll see highs of 0 and lows of -7. In Paris, 13 degrees, getting slightly warmer. That will be the high today, coming down to lows of 8. While in London, it's 11 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 12 and lows of 11. 6 degrees and mostly clear in New York. Still, Wednesday night, coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 7 and lows of 5.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's 21
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Robo Chepkicho, I like that name, is tuned in this morning. Lisa is tuned in from Zambia. Living a day at a time is what Stanley's doing. And watching live from Kericho, it's Johnston Smith. Dubai, Rundu Marvelous, that's where he is tuned in from this morning. And Robert says, good morning to you. Benson, we see you. Asante Sana for joining us. And Racha Jose says he's in this morning. Lamek Awondo says, good morning as well. We can see you all this morning. Thanks for joining us. Asante.
Karibuni sana, City. The proverb?
Yes. The water in the river flows without waiting for a thirsty man. Okay, let's get gender-friendly here. The water in the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
The water in the river flows without waiting for a thirsty person. Nagwenda tu.
Yes.
Paharini. Nagwenda tu kwa mutoni, nagwenda paharini.
Yes.
Okay, it's clear. Let's look at the newspaper headlines, standardmedia.co.ke or the Standard e-paper on Google Play Store or Apple App Store. What's in the headlines?
The rich to pay more for NHIF under the proposed tough changes. It is the time for Wananchi and other interested parties to give views on the far-reaching changes NHIF intends to implement through 5 new regulations. Once they become law, those who fail to comply will be denied government services, in addition to being fined in a movement to make health insurance mandatory. Citizens have 1 month to speak out or hold their peace. Before we go to the article, some numbers. 12.7 million, the number of Kenyans currently covered by NHIF. 500 shillings, what Kenyans in self-employment pay to the fund in monthly premiums. 1,700 shillings, the amount employed Kenyans pay monthly. This will be reviewed under the proposed amendments. And 20,000 shillings is the amount that adults without NHIF membership will be fined. Okay, so this is what they hope to do. If this is passed into law, it'll be interesting. Draft regulations published by Health CS Muthui Kagwe in consultation with the NHIF board seek to change the current bans where maximum contribution is capped at 1,700 shillings. Under the draft National Health Insurance Fund Contributions Regulations 2022, Kenyans earning more than 99,999 shillings will be contributing 1.7% of their gross income to NHIF. You want to do the math? The proposed regulations, if passed, will increase monthly premiums for earners of more than 100,000 shillings beyond the current first flat rate of 1,700. For instance, a person earning 150,000 shillings will see their premiums rise by 50% to 2,550 from the current 1,700. Those earning 200,000 shillings per month will contribute 3,400 shillings, being double their current contributions, while those earning 500,000 shillings will see their premiums rise 5 times to 8,500. The proposal, along 4 others, was published yesterday with NHIF Chief Executive Peter Kamunyo indicating that they will be subjected to public consultation between February 23rd and March 23rd. So you have an opportunity to lend your voice. You think this is bollocks? Come out and say it. You think this is unfair? Come out and say it. You think there should be another way in which this should be done? Come out and say it. After the 23rd of March, you will have to hold your peace. The proposal, increasing premiums for top earners looks set to raise income for NHIF, which is expected to take the lead in implementing the Universal Health Coverage Program. Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data on distribution of wage employment and monthly income shows that there were 79,909 Kenyans taking home more than 100,000 shillings in 2020 compared to that of 2016. So there's an increase in numbers of people who are earning a certain amount. It guarantees NHIF under this new scheme that there will be money in the kitty.
Okay. The majority of the earners in this country are still within that same bracket.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's 50,000 and below. And we are therefore talking about the highest amount being around 950. Those earning less than 6,000 will be paying 150. And those earning about 50 Gs will be contributing 1,000 shillings. 60, 1,100, and so on and so forth, up to 1,600 for 99,999. So it's only 79,000 people who would then get into that graduated 1.7% of monthly income. Okay. The crucial part here is that it is now mandatory for every adult to be a member of NHIF. And then there's that fine of 20,000 shillings if you do not. They propose 20,000 for a penalty for adults. A person who does not register as a member commits an offence and shall be liable to a penalty not exceeding 20,000 shillings. Then the government also says, the draft regulations also say that every person above 18 years of age shall be a registered contributor or beneficiary when seeking government services. Basically, what you're saying is if you don't have an NHIF contribution, NHIF membership card,
current,
you're going to sell land, you're going to apply for a PIN, you're going to apply for driving license,
bank account.
You will not get government services if you don't prove that you are an NHIF member. I think that's where now Huduma number will come in, because it's just keying in and seeing, my friend, do you want to apply for driving license?
But we see you don't have this.
But you're not an NHIF member. So the first thing that you do first is you
become a member.
Become a member of NHIF, and then now we talk about you getting your driving license.
And it's interesting because it's not a matter of becoming a member for 3 months or whatever, and then you can pull out of the scheme. It is for life. So there'll be regular checks on it.
But if you become a member and you don't keep up the payments, then what happens?
Penalties.
There's penalties, huge ones. You have to be and that's where that word is. You have to be a current paid up member. And in order to do that, you have to have been paying regularly.
So equals mandatory.
Yes. That's what they're trying to do. Make it mandatory.
It's mandatory for everybody. I think one of the big issues that I would have with this is, and even the current, before we even kick in the regulations, is the penalty. Because the penalty is 50% of the contribution. So let's just talk about, ordinary contributor, voluntary contributor currently paying 500 shillings a month. If in the month of January, you don't pay that 500 shillings, penalty kicks in 250. Bob.
Oh, okay, yes, sorry, okay.
250 bob. So February, you are supposed to pay 750 being the contribution for January plus penalty, plus then the February amount, 500. So it rises from just looking for 500 shillings to suddenly getting into February and you're looking for 1,250. Now, if you did not have the 500 in January, 1,250 for February, you don't pay, we continue. It keeps accruing interest. So it gets to a point where now it's just too much. Because if you don't contribute for a year, 6,000, then you have a penalty of 50%, 3,000. Pay 9,000 to regularize your membership. I find that a bit too stiff.
It's stiff.
It's very punitive.
Yeah.
It is punitive.
And then, so even if somebody, was for one reason or the other, was not able to contribute for a month, and then the 50% kicks in, then it basically just rises. It becomes too steep too soon.
I'm wondering, Eric, so I remember before that somebody would then be able to, you pay, you're a member of NHIF, but then your family would be covered under you.
Yep.
Has that changed now? They're requiring every adult, plus the 18-year-olds, to have their own contributory for their own account.
That's something we need to clarify as well.
I wonder if that still is.
Because you see, even now, it's mandatory for every person who's employed to be a member of NHIF.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter whether you and your spouse are in the same household, you both must contribute to NHIF.
That's it now.
Right?
Yeah.
So, does the husband's cover the wife and children?
Versa,
And does the wife's cover the husband and vice versa? There's always been that confusion, and they say, yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Well, if one contributes, it's fine. If one then is out of a job, it's fine. But if you're employed, you must contribute. I think it's going to be the same thing.
Okay.
You're an adult, you must contribute. Tough ones, but we'll seek clarification. This one we'll engage.
For sure.
This one, it will be public participation right here to get to understand
what exactly
the whole issue. And then imagine you're contributing and you come from Tana River County. It's 6:30. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break, take a look at the traffic. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say, I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us to assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokoh is Jeshi la Wokoh?
I can't say it very well. Well, you need to Jeshi la Wokoh.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, building up in certain parts of Nairobi this morning. Half an hour ago, we didn't see quite much of anything, but then we're looking at Jogo Road now, and that's piling up. Uhuru Highway is like magic. Here, 1 minute, and then nothing. And then in half an hour, boom, all the way into Westlands has built up quite significantly. Also on the Thika Superhighway, it's quite heavy this morning, and really early. So getting to the Pangani underpass, and then in the opposite direction, all the way to Clayworks today, that traffic is really heavy, well into Kiambu County today. Wagwan is the question. All right, we're also seeing some traffic coming off of Waiyaki Way. You can use the Red Hill Link Road if you can't sit through this, but it's not too painful right now. We'll keep an eye on things for you. Let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Let's talk about it on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. At least we can point you in a good direction, or at least ask you to stay put where you are. And then text as well on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It is 36 minutes to 7. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. So for a number of years now, the governor of Kakamega County, the Honorable His Excellency FCPA Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, EGH, has really been talking about, how he has done a lot of work, especially in the healthcare sector for Kakamega County. In fact, we are building a very big hospital. The hospital in Kakamega is a level 6 hospital. In the structure of healthcare in this country, health is devolved. Level 6 is a what?
Yeah, the referrals.
National referral hospitals.
Or national referral and teaching
hospitals.
Right?
Yes.
Meaning national, meaning what? Under the national?
They're actually under the national government. That's what it means.
Right?
Yeah.
Under the national?
Government.
The county government of Kakamega has built a national
hospital.
Referral
Don't play with us,
hospital,
man.
750 bed capacity, 8 billion shillings. Started the project. Sits on just, not very big piece of land, is just 10 acres of land. You got to a point, it's stalled.
Oh, no.
So you have a key structure there that is not completed. Now, the Honorable His Excellency FCPA Wycliffe Oparanya EGH has been talking about, now let's transfer this thing to the national government to ensure that it's completed so that locals can enjoy critical health services closer to them. He said the county government intends to transfer the structure and the 10-acre land that the facility sits on because it does not have the capacity to complete its construction, to hire 5,000 health personnel, to the 32 theatres, some of whom are required to offer highly specialized medical services. He said he earlier this year initiated the transfer process of the sold 750-bed capacity project to the national government, citing delays in the disbursement of funds from the treasury. Now, he said, we have agreed that some residents will be part of the board of management and others will be hired as medics so that they continue owning the idea that they started, representing the interest of the locals and ensuring the aim of the project is accomplished. Now, the matter has gone to the County Assembly of Kakamega. MCAs are clashing over the transfer of the 8 billion stalled Kakamega Teaching and Referral Level 6 Hospital to the national government. The leaders are differed. There are those who are saying, just hand it over. And others who are saying, why don't we borrow some money so we can complete this? Borrow some money so we can complete it. However, the Minister for Health in Kakamega County, Collins Matemba, told the MCAs, you know what, guys? We will be needing 13 billion shillings every year to run this hospital. Do you know how much our county division of revenue allocation comes to? 15 billion shillings. So we will be receiving 15 billion shillings from the National Treasury, and 13 billion will be going to just run one hospital. So I think just let's tukubaliane tu hii kitu iende Nairobi.
Can I ask a question? When they were planning to build this hospital in the first place, these folks now who suddenly realize it's going to take 13 billion shillings to run it, were they there?
And 5,000 health workers.
Were they part of the planning? Because there must have been a committee. There is always a committee. Were they part of it saying, this is what we're going to do? Or were they just licking the boots of the governor who said he wanted to?
Don't get sucked into this drama.
I'm just asking a question.
Yes, and I'm also just responding to the question. Don't get sucked into this drama. These people knew full well what it means to begin such a project, and they knew full well that with the right maneuvers, the government will take it over. Will.
Because it's 10 acres. There's this monstrosity of a structure sitting on 10 acres. It's not be completed. Another level 6 hospital in the country would be a good thing.
It is in the government's interest.
It's in the government's interest to finish the project.
Yes, and you've spent your own money, and then we're just coming in to
finish.
It is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. And remember, the thing that I think the people, the originators of this idea knew and understood, look at what that is going to do to the economy of Kakamega. The moment you have such a hospital, look at what you invite. Look at the professionals who come in.
Look at the traffic you divert from all the people who come from that area that would probably find themselves at KNH.
Yes.
Because that's the only one.
Or go to JORT. All of a sudden, look at that region.
Everybody's going in that direction.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
Take Kakamega and just spread it east, west, go. What you've done, it's a smart move if you ask me.
It's a smart move by saying we couldn't finish it.
It's a smart move by actually just starting it.
I don't agree. You've spent 8 billion shillings of money that could have gone into building
Something
several
else.
level 3s and level 4s that could actually sort out health needs of the people. All right? You've sunk in 8 billion shillings into this thing. And then you've said, okay, now national government take over.
Come and take over.
National government, even if they take over, it doesn't mean that they're going to come in and start, we had some spare change, let's finish this project immediately. How long is it going to take for national government to actually complete this project, for you to start realizing the economic benefits that we're talking about?
Can I ask something? Are we saying
in the meantime,
yes,
could we have had an extra level 4 and
2 or 3
level 3s?
Are we saying they don't have them?
That's a question.
Look, they may have them, but could we have had extras?
Yes, we could have.
Do we have a surplus of health services in Kakamega that you say
we don't
now?
have a surplus of health services in the whole country.
Exactly.
There's no.
Now that we don't have a surplus of health services in Kakamega, to say that now, what we needed was just a national referral hospital in our neighborhood. That money should have gone into something else. This is a project, it's a white elephant that was meant to be a white elephant from the get-go. 8 billion shillings has
gone. The
gone.
National Referral Hospital in Odai, is it a white elephant?
No, it isn't. It's a national government project. Precisely. It wasn't the county government of Nyeri.
It was not initiated as a county government.
It was started by the national government from the get-go. Devolution came in, they completed the work, they handed it over to KNH.
Okay. You see, I don't know the discussions that the county government of Kakamega had with the national government on this matter. But everything about it points to them having had some understanding. Because I do not see a situation where someone would begin such a lofty project and didn't have a plan, or there wasn't a plan around and about it. That you build it so that somewhere along the line you'll get stuck and then start floundering and wondering what to do next. The floundering and what we're reading as being reported, that's for us to consume.
There definitely was a plan, City. I think there was a plan. Now the question is, was that plan the best plan? Was that plan helping the people? Was that plan helping some people? Where has this 8 billion shillings gone?
Was that plan helping the people, or was it helping some people?
Yes.
The response to that question is actually very simple. It was helping some people.
Because, surely,
like
if they had a conversation with the national government from the get-go, all right, and there's a plan. So we will provide you with the land, okay? We will provide you with the labor, all right? We will provide you with this and the other, fine. But the county government has been running this project solely by itself.
The question...
And then at the last minute and say, you know what? Hey, this thing has told.
The question that comes to mind, actually, Eric, as you're saying this, is the structure that we have, is it worth 8 billion?
Good question.
Because what does it take to actually put up a structure that level?
A 750 bed capacity.
Didn't we see the level 4, I believe, in Marsabit County that was that was done at the cost of about 480 million? Dr. Mercy Correa told us about that.
Yes,
320 in
possible to be done under 500
million
shillings.
Yes.
500 million shillings.
Yes.
Mother and Child Hospital in Wote, 320 million.
See? So what are we talking about?
What bed capacity?
300 bed capacity.
See?
Half of this.
For me, that's a real question.
That's where the rat stinks.
Yes. Yeah. The structure that you have, is it worth 8 billion shillings? And could the project not have been completed with 8 billion or even less? What does it cost to put up a level 6 hospital with that capacity?
Question's got to be asked.
Yes. That really, if you ask me, is the real question.
Let's take a break on that note. It is 7:15. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at the newspapers, the headlines today. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Looking at City.
Actually, I'm looking at an article that has been written, an opinion, about the families pay steep price in politics. It's what caught my attention. And what it is that families do, well, what families pay for when members of that particular family decide to venture into politics. How you end up spending everything that you had, borrowing some, and even selling the family home, all in the name of politics. And when you saw me deep in thought, I was looking at it and I was thinking of the number of people I know who over the years informed me that they had been convinced, they knew they were getting it. There was no question about it. And they didn't get it. Because, no, they didn't get it. Because one person has to win. It's never two people. You don't share the position. I'm going to be MCA for 2.5 years, then you 2.5. It's one person who wins it. So even if there are 20 of you, only one person will win. And all these other 19 are spending, if not an equal amount, more money than you are spending. And I was thinking why it is that people seem to feel that it is worth the bother. And this article talks about the psychological aspects of it. Somebody begins spending and somehow wants to maintain this image that they are able to, and to the detriment of everything that they've actually worked for and accumulated over the years. And they spend it within a period of a year or two, and it's gone. So you move from being someone who's spending what they have to somebody who is now in debt. And a debt that you will most probably not be able to pay.
Why are our campaigns so expensive?
It continues to be a question.
Why is it? Because it also now discourages people who really would be good leaders, potentially good leaders, from venturing.
Yes.
Because you're just thinking, all right, so I need 35 million shillings to be a member of parliament. So where am I going to get 35 million shillings? How many people am I going to reach out to get contributions that amount to 35 million shillings that can help me win this seat? Especially if my challenger has a pocket of 100 million. He'll just wait for me, watch how much I'm spending, and then in 3 weeks.
Eric, remember we're having this discussion, and I put forward a thought, and I said, I want to observe the number of people who've been heading parastatals or government institutions and departments, especially the ones which are embroiled in some financial issues. And I want to see how many of them are going to present themselves to the electorate as wannabe leaders or wannabe people who hoped to get elected. Because, again, there's a direct correlation between those two things at some level. You will find that there are people who've been in certain positions and suddenly want to venture into politics. For the longest time, we've had this discussion of people wanting to go into politics so that they can actually protect whatever it is they've accumulated. Yes.
Or make back what we've used to get there.
Yes. Or having had a taste of it to accumulate more.
Right.
Yes. But also remember, there's something about our parliament that is actually fairly attractive. There are very few parliaments on this planet where people are paid as much as our people are paid.
Indeed.
Okay? And every year there's an increase. Like now, they're getting, in the next budget, there'll be an increase of 11.7 billion Kenya shillings that is being allocated to Parliament so that they can pay off the MPs, do the other. Now, being a member of Parliament in this country is lucrative.
Of course it is.
It's no longer the quasi-voluntary aspiration that people had.
Just what you earn on a monthly basis without even touching anything in terms of projects or anything like that. Just what you earn on a monthly in allowances and then your basics is quite attractive. So, I mean, everybody wants to get there at some point.
So, it's clearly understandable. And then also, there's the power and influence peddling, which also comes at a cost.
Right.
Yes. So, this year, I think the drama that is awaiting for us with the competition that people are going to have, wanting to vie for these various seats, I think it's going to be not only monumental, it'll be historical.
Indeed. An interesting story. There's a woman who's seeking the court's help to save her 50 million shilling home in Nairobi. And not just like that. This story by Paul Ogemba is saying a mentally ill woman is seeking the court's intervention to secure her 50 million shilling home in Nairobi's Kilimani from auctioneers who have moved to evict her family. Monica Wambui, who was noted by another court to be mentally incapacitated, claims that she is at risk of being rendered homeless. This is after a lawyer who allegedly sold the home without her consent obtained an order to remove her and her mother, Pauline Muthui, from the house. Through lawyer Titus Koseyo, the two women filed an urgent application to stop the eviction, claiming the High Court issued the illegal order when the dispute is still pending at the Court of Appeal. The property was fraudulently transferred to the purported buyer, and the perpetrators of the fraudulent scheme have now conspired and obtained an eviction order when they are aware that whether the matter is pending determination at the Court of Appeal. Wambui said she struggled to buy the house in 2002 while working abroad as a graphic designer, only for her lawyer to take advantage while she was hospitalized over mental illness to transfer the property. What is more intriguing is that Wambui and her mother claim that they rejected the sale agreements purportedly drawn between them and the buyer, Lucy Wairimo Mwangi. The question is, dispute over the 4-bedroomed house known as Masonette number 16, Casablanca Villas on Dennis Pritt in Kilimani started in 2009 when Mwangi sued Wambui and her mother for refusing to vacate the house after buying it at 13.7 million. But Wambui in her defense stated that she was suffering from depression and could not have been legally competent to enter into a contract at the time she said to have sold the house. She told the court she did not receive the sale amount, having written to her lawyer to cancel the deal over allegations of fraud, and that she did not freely consent to the sale agreement due to her mental status. Justice Grace Nzioka found that she was indeed suffering from a mental illness, but ruled that she could not prove that she was mentally indisposed during the actual period of the sale in January. She and her mother appealed against the decision, but we're still waiting for the appellate court's decision scheduled for the 1st of March. Mwangi moved to the High Court and on February 9th obtained an order allowing her to evict the family. So, sale agreement is said to have happened while Monica is said to have been indisposed due to mental incapacitation. That is what was going on at that time. I could not have entered into this agreement. I was not all right at that time.
At that point, had she been medically found to be mentally unfit?
She says she
enter
was.
Into?
She says she was. Justice Nzioka said that she has not presented any evidence to show that she actually was.
Yeah.
No medical documents.
How would you know as a buyer?
Testimony. Yeah.
As a buyer, how would I know that as I'm entering into this sale agreement and negotiation with this person, right now they are not in their proper
I'm sitting with you and having a conversation.
Yeah.
How would I know that you were not all right?
So once you've done all these things and I've started transferring the money to you, then you come back later and say, no, cancel this. I was not.
There's something strange here.
Was the money received?
She said that the full sale amount, interestingly enough, was not received by them. At that time, 13.7 million shillings.
And how much of it was received?
That's the question, and that's not coming out here.
You know
because I don't think this.
We've entered into a sale agreement.
Yes.
The thing is, we've entered into a sale agreement. I have started actualizing my bit of a sale agreement.
By paying you.
By paying. All right? I've started committing myself into how I'm going to get the rest of the money to finish paying.
And I don't think Lucy...
And then you come and cancel that on the ground that it's not on anything else.
But that you are mentally incapacitated.
Yes. So how do
am
I
I
come
supposed
in?
to know? And then I don't think Lucy Wairimo, who is the one who is supposed to have been buying this house, would be crazy enough to just give money to somebody that they had not made an agreement with over buying the home.
There's a lawyer involved.
Yeah, there's a lawyer here. You see.
But also, being of sound mind, you see, you now get into technicalities, and you talk about the whole process.
There's something wonky.
It's not only something. The whole case, in my mind, doesn't read as though it has anything to do with someone's mental illness. The mental illness, which may be present now, is being used retroactively to determine a position that somebody took.
Plus, she's saying that at the time, beyond the conversation with the proposed buyer, at the time she was not in the country. So her lawyer was in now cahoots with this lady, the supposed buyer, to dispose of the property.
By the way, even if the lawyer is in cahoots, unless you're saying they forged your documents.
That's what she's saying. It was fraudulently done.
No.
But was the document, was the signature forged?
No. They didn't talk about any forgery here.
She was aware that there's a sale.
That's what I'm telling you. I think she knew.
Her mother, because there's mother also involved.
Mother was in Kenya.
You know, The lawyer may be involved, yes, but the owner has the final say as to whether that property gets sold or not.
Yes.
So the issue, when you say fraudulently, we haven't heard
It's a
the
bit
last
dodgy.
one. We
But
haven't
then
heard, yes.
but the question is, if what they're claiming is the case, why would this Lucy Wairimu start to make payment?
You know, there's a lot about this case that we haven't heard.
lot.
We're not being told. This is
just
just
the
initial
top layer.
reporting,
Yeah.
and that's why there's so many questions arising. When we actually get to understand the details of what actually transpired, it'll be a lot easier to understand. This thing is not. It's not what is being presented is just
It's
a
not
sketchy
really-
outline of what this house, so and so day, so and
She
so.
is also saying, however, that she presented the documents showing that she was mentally incapacitated at the time. But during that particular case hearing, that the High Court ignored those documents and refused to take them into consideration.
That's what she's saying.
That's what she's saying.
But at the point, the judge, in delivering his ruling, said, you have not
Delivering her
proven.
ruling said you've not proved that you were unwell.
This is going to be a landmark one, because also let's talk about actually the rights of somebody who is mentally unwell
Yeah.
in entering into contract or not. At what point does that contract become invalidated because of mental incapacity? So if, we say even you can lose office, even as an elected person, because of mental incapacity. If we later come to realize that you were mentally unwell even as you were campaigning,
Then does the contract become null and void?
this one is going to be one of those landmark ones that are coming from the courts. So we'll be looking shortly at the how to protect our children online, but just updates on what's happening. The Deputy President talks about agriculture in the country and the potential that we have, especially in securing other markets. Talks then about the DRC. Of course, you've seen that clip online where he says DRC goes on to mention hawana hata ng'ombe moja. The leadership in the DRC is up in arms. The Kenya's ambassador to DRC visited foreign ministry in DRC and issued a government apology to this and said, no, this is not a government position. This is a position just of an individual at that point. The Deputy President himself has apologized for this. A senator from the DRC's ambassador to Kenya have raised a storm on this. This one, and DRC is just about to join the East African community.
The question that I would ask is, what is a slip of the tongue?
Yeah.
Or was it a deliberate slide of the tongue?
Yes. Big one.
Must ask.
Let's talk about saving and not safeguarding the internet for our children.
So we know this month is when the world celebrated Safer Internet Day. There's a lot of drama that has happened on the internet in terms of who can be kept safe, in terms of how especially children can be kept safe in what they browse on and about. So the Communications Authority of Kenya has marked the day with the launch of Cyber Soldiers. It's a safe and easy way and fun way for our kids to play, to learn about the threats that they face on the internet. Cyber Soldiers is available to play for free on the website, and is also played best while on phone or tablet. So what is it doing? Teaching kids how to recognize threats on the internet and how to fight them. The objective of the game is to learn about how to deal with online threats and vulnerabilities. Kids and parents can access the game and the online safety tips. www.ca.go.ke. You can click on the tab for either Play Cyber Soldiers or learn about child online protection, making the internet a safer place for everybody to play.
Indeed. And in coming hours, you'll also be looking at how else you can get access to this information and how you can help your children stay safe when they are using the internet. Keeping up and keep it right here. For the next hour, we are going to talk about the Huduma number, the National Integrated Information Management System. The person who's in charge of it, Philip Lemarasia, the Senior Administrator, will be here with us in the studio. And also a case study from Sylvia Lips, a PhD student at Tallinn University of Technology. In which country city?
Estonia.
Yep, that and more coming up in the next hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, broadcasting on SpiceFM and live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook. It's 7 a.m.
spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Pressure continues to pile up on Deputy President William Ruto over his utterances on DRC Congo, with the ODM leader Rollout now urging the DP to offer a public apology to the Democratic Republic of Congo for making contentious remarks. According to the former premier, the DP disregarded all protocols when making his utterances, which he labelled as a manifestation of a reckless lack of vision and foresight, despite Kenya maintaining a cordial relationship with the President Felix Tshisekedi nation. He highlighted how DRC is rich and promising in terms of economic potential, underscoring the country as an important transport hub, one of the leading producers of cobalt and copper in the region, and a massive hydropower generation. As such, Kenya should strive to maintain cordial relationships with it. This as Democratic Republic of Congo Senator Francine Muyumba called on Deputy President William Ruto to retract his now infamous "no cows" remarks that he made in reference to her country. She spelled out that Kenya and the Central African nation have long held close relations, and the DP's statements were threatening those binding ties.
We are very shocked to have followed with regret the contemptuous, disrespectful, arrogant remarks made by the Deputy President of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, against our country, the Democratic Republic of Congo in particular, and as the people of Congo in general. These remarks are unacceptable. We therefore call on Dr. Ruto to kindly withdraw his statements. Kenyan people and Congolese people are a friendly and brotherly people.
Muyumba warned that ties between the two countries were at stake due to the statements that were made.
This statement intends to weaken our relations. Candidates running for the highest office of this great country, Kenya, need to bear that in mind. Running for this office as a candidate, presidential candidate, one needs to sharpen his sense of diplomatic responsibility and public speaking. This is unacceptable. Dr. Ruto, kindly withdraw your statement.
Meanwhile, Deputy President William Ruto has broken his silence and retracted his controversial sentiments that have since brought him under fire. The DP says his speech may have been taken out of context since his intentions were purely to reach out to the local residents. He similarly noted that his assertions were not meant to cause strife with the Central African nation, as he himself holds a high opinion of the country. Now, the National Assembly's Public Investments Committee plans to summon former Energy Cabinet Secretary Charles Keter and his former Principal Secretary Joseph Njoroge to explain what they know about the Lake Turkana wind power project that has left electricity consumers with a 6-year burden of paying for power they never utilized. This comes as the committee's bid to extract answers from the current Kenya Power Management ended in futility, as the officials could not explain how basic contracts were arrived at.
I have not explicitly met a documentation to confirm who drafted the contract.
There is no record that you consulted the Attorney General?
They did not. There are records that they did not consult the Attorney General.
Is there any reason why your legal manager did not advise the board that this contract was null and void? It was illegal, actually.
The PPA was signed by the managing director and one of our directors.
Barely a week since he left office, former devolution CS Charles Keter has been summoned by the committee to shed more light on the issues being queried by the committee.
Do you strongly believe that the interests of Kenya Power would be covered if that independent engineer is contracted by the same people who that engineer is meant to actually oversight? It is either that you feel that there's so much that you still don't know about this, or you're worried about some people.
The correct position is that there is a lot of this information that I may not be very firmly familiar with.
The board chair, KPLC, should appear before this committee. The former CEO should appear before this committee. The former CS should appear before this committee, and as well the current PS of Energy, so that they shed light on this.
Now, fighting malaria in the country will become cheaper. This after the commissioning of locally manufactured malaria rapid diagnostic kits. The kits, which were made by scientists at the Kenya Medical Research Institute, are set to enhance diagnosis of malaria by reducing cost of testing. Kenya records an estimated 3.5 million new clinical cases and 10,700 deaths from malaria each year. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM,
Getting into traffic
Nakuru.
out this morning, and we're seeing traffic has built up quite some on Gong Road today, getting onto Huru Highway all the way from the Nyeri Station roundabout out towards Westlands. That's really packed today. Jogo Road not doing too badly. We'll keep an eye on this. Where we're keeping an eye on things today specifically is the Thika Superhighway. Quite a lot of traffic getting into the city. And then Kiambu Road is doing that thing as well. Many lanes where there should be four, looking quite sticky. Coming out of Westlands as well, some traffic. Red Hill Link Road is going to do you some good. Use that as an option. Let's look at the Eastern Bypass. A little bit of a hold up there, but then going out towards Ruai shouldn't be an issue. The Southern Bypass, a little bit of traffic there as you're approaching Langata. And then coming off at the junction here, going towards that connect. Okay, shouldn't be too bad, but these are just the ebbs and flows that we're seeing. Remember, looking at that General Motors section today, looking like it's going to be pretty messy as most of that road then has been taken down from yesterday as they finish that part of the construction. Okay, let's talk SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127. Let's keep things moving this Thursday.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
It is 7
your
minutes
day.
after 7. Good morning. How are you doing? It's the 17th day of February 2022. Kenya's biggest conversation enters the second hour this lovely Thursday morning, first Friday of the week, and CT Muga has the proverb.
The water in the river flows on without waiting for the thirsty person. Actually, it's an African proverb. It actually stated thirsty man, but I have been told by my colleagues I need to be gender correct. So, person, not man.
The water in the river?
It flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
Okay. It's a very straightforward proverb.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes, it is. Like most proverbs, seemingly straightforward
until
you give it a
you ask
twist.
yourself, but what's the meaning of it?
Yes.
Yes. The interpretation of it is now where the issues come in. So who are you talking about? Who's thirsty? Who's the water? Who's the river?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it going?
And who's they?
Yeah, and who's they? And where's the river going? What's the source of this river?
Yes.
Is it clean water? Is it not clean water?
Maybe the person who was passing the river saw that the water was dirty and decided not to drink. Okay, anyway.
God.
Or there's nobody who's thirsty because they have wells in their own homes.
Surely.
The politics.
And this is just a nature walk.
Let's introduce our guests in the studio this morning. We are going to talk about Huduma number. And Philip Lamarasia is a senior administrator for the National Integrated Information Management System. Huduma number. Okay? And the other guest in the studio is a guest from Estonia, Sylvia Lips. She is from Tallinn University of Technology, TalTech, a PhD student, but also very much aware of how Estonia moved from zero digitization to almost 100% digitization of government services. Very good morning to you, Philip and Sylvia. Welcome to the Situation Room. So, Philip, it's good to have you here in the show. And we call that the hot seat. We're not going to make it very, very hot. We'll just, because you're here to tell us about Huduma number, and we know what we've been told about Huduma number. If you don't have Huduma. So before those things come into effect, we're going to squeeze the person who's in charge.
You're welcome to do that.
Ahead of time. Sylvia, welcome.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Right. So tell us about what you have done. What brings you to Kenya?
Well, actually, I think Estonia has been in many countries because of digitalization that we have done in our small country. Of course, Kenya is much, much bigger than Estonia. However, I think we have been starting our journey already in the beginning of 2000s. So, and we have come to the case where our government services are 99% online right now. So I think we have gone through a long, long way, and we are really happy to share our experience with other countries, so to that all those other countries also could learn from our experience and maybe avoid some of the obstacles that we have been struggling. And also to give you some insight, exactly also our success, to share what we have done so far.
Great. And Philip, we have talked about Huduma number on this show a number of times. We even had a guest, the Cabinet Secretary for ICT, was here telling us about the whole idea behind Huduma number and what it would be able to do for us and how far would go. But just give us the progress so far on having one national integrated information management system. What is it? How far are we?
Thank you. Good morning, Kenyans. Now, Huduma number concept, we need to demystify this Huduma number thing. First of all, why Huduma? Where is this name coming from? Ideally, the idea is to ensure that we have efficient and effective service provision to Kenyans. And going back the memory lane, in this country, the best example you can talk about service provision are the Huduma centers that we have in this country, whereby Huduma Kenya Secretariat. By the way, Huduma Kenya Secretariat and Huduma number are different entities. I think we've been mixed up. Many people don't differentiate the same. Huduma Kenya Secretariat is under Minister of Public Service. Huduma number is under Minister of Interior. But more or less, the word Huduma is synonymous with Kenyans for service delivery success under Huduma Kenya Secretariat, whereby you have different services provided in one room. Different counters, you come into that one room, you can get services in different counters, and that created the name Huduma service provision. So our idea with the Huduma number project is to ensure that we collapse many documentation that gives you access to services. You collapse all those different documentations into one document in the name of a digital ID called Huduma. In that sense, we'll help you also get efficient and effective service. You'll get efficient Huduma service provision. Huduma is service. So if you're able to put all those documents into one card, and that card enables you to get efficient service, then you're helping you get better Huduma. So that word Huduma was coined as a result of what I'm trying to explain. But the original name of the project is NIMS, National Integrated Identity Management System, NIMS. But you see that sounds mouthful. It's easier to call it Huduma. It will resonate with many Kenyans easily. So that's actually the idea of government. Instead of you carrying your NHF card, carrying your NSSF card, carrying your driving license, carrying your ID, carrying your birth certificate, we put all those documentations into one digital card. Of course, there's the issue of data protection and data security. We can talk about that. But we've also made great strides towards ensuring that in as much as we collapse all those identity documentations into one, the protection of one's data is given priority. And that's why we even took a lot of effort to develop the Data Protection Act 2020 and its attendant regulations, Data Protection Civil Regulations, to operationalize our bit of data protection.
Okay.
Yes.
So since you rolled out the NIMS, Integrated identity, not information. It's a national integrated identity
management
system.
Yeah.
And people have applied. Several million people have applied already. How far have you gone into integrating all those? My ID number, my passport number, my birth certificate number, my KRA PIN, my business licenses, my NHIF, my NSSF, my NTSA driving license, my logbooks. How far have you gone into integrating all those? Because I have a Huduma number.
Ah, good. Thank you to hear that. Great.
I'm one of those Kenyans.
We're still producing.
He's talking and looking at me because he knows I don't have a Huduma card or number. Yes. He does that all the time. Yes.
Okay. Just to answer to your question there, we started the project in 2018. Initially, you realize that we had to develop legal instruments where the project will have been anchored, because again, you cannot just start something that is not having legal foundation. So there was an amendment done to the Registration Act, Status Law Miscellaneous Amendment, that actually established NIMS. Section 9A of that Status Law Miscellaneous Amendment established NIMS as a department in the Ministry of Interior. Now, that was the first foundation that we had to start off. From there, the President actually gazetted the operationalization now of NIMS. Yeah. So that was done. After that, we had now to start doing the rollout of the project. So we announced the mass registration exercise that many Kenyans participated in around 2019. And in this particular exercise, we were able to register 37 million Kenyans across the country. Actually, not only Kenyans, that 7 million persons were registered. And persons in this particular case, we mean Kenyan citizens, foreign nationals, and refugees. They were all registered. But to realize that when we did that, a section of the population or some institutions felt like we did not have proper adequate mechanisms to protect the data. So a case was taken to court against us. We were given an injunction. So we had to stop the project for some time and deal with the court case. So from 2019 May, when we finished the registration, we were in abeyance. An injunction stopped us from proceeding. So we prosecuted our issues in court. The whole of 2019 from May all the way up to 2020, end of January, when a ruling was delivered on that particular case. But before the ruling came out, we had actually answered to the issues raised in court by developing a Data Protection Act. Luckily enough, there was a bill on data protection that had been engineered by Minister of ICT, but it had not been completed. So we picked it up. And of course, working with the Minister of ICT, who are actually very strong partners in the project, we were able to deliver that data protection to make it an act of parliament. We took it through the whole journey and became an act of parliament. After that, in the ruling of the court, they said, okay, fine, you have complied. You have a Data Protection Act. You can proceed. But again, you must ensure that you develop other legal instruments, namely the regulations to operationalize the Data Protection Act. So we did data protection civil regulations to operationalize that particular aspect of Data Protection Act in relation to what we are doing. Then also the court said we need also to develop regulations on the Status Law Miscellaneous Amendment to the Registration Act that established us, because we didn't have regulations for that. So we proceeded very fast and did 2 regulations, as we were instructed. That took us the whole of 2020 up to November, when the 2 regulations were approved in Parliament, when they were accented in Parliament. Now, with the 2 regulations in place, with the Data Protection Act in place, with the Miscellaneous Amendment to the Registration Act in place, we had now 4 pieces of legislation that ideally allowed us to proceed with whatever had remained in terms of our project. That is now doing the data cleaning of the data we collected and subsequent production of Udumacad. That's when now we started the rollout of Udumacad issuance across the country, having the 4 pieces of legislation in place. And we did the rollout of the card from November 2020 all the way. We proceeded, we continued all over the country until another matter was now brought up again in court, where it was said that we have not yet prepared data protection impact assessment, which is a conditionality of the Data Protection Act, which we had actually pushed for the implementation. So there is currently an order against us not to proceed, but what we have done is we are complying with the order. So there's a ruling coming up. We don't want to talk about it so much, but of course there's a ruling coming up on that on 18th of March. We'll see what the court says, but we're in compliance with that last order of October last year. That is the one that has affected our operations as at now. But once we're done with this particular legal hurdle and the court grants us the way forward, then we can now be able to proceed and give the rest of Kenyans who did not get the cards, we give them their cards.
Does any of this sound familiar for you, Sylvia? Or when you had a rollout of something like this in Estonia, for example,
yes,
with the digitization?
It was it was actually so funny to listen, because I think Estonia was facing exactly similar issues in the beginning, because every start is a hard one. And when the first ID cards came out in 2001 and even in 2006, when the cards were already 5 years been in hands of the people, the cards were not very actively used, because there were no services that were integrated. So it took some time for the government to understand that, of course, now when we have digitalized everything and we have every person has already the card to access the services, then now what kind of services we need to actually offer to our citizens to make the best out of the card that we have. So I think it is very normal that these initiatives, first they need to get to the people, as you are doing right now, that as many people as have this kind of unique identifier to be able to access those services. And then also government in parallel actually should think already now what could be these services that can be delivered to the people so that they could benefit from it. Well, Estonia started from the tax side, but every country has, I think this kind of cookie what to offer to the people, because Estonia has a quite unique system that if you are declaring your taxes, usually you get some refund, and everybody wants to have some money, right? And every citizen that had this kind of access to the EID, they could already, and they declared their taxes online, they could the refund really fast. So everyone wanted to try that because, they wanted to get their money back. So I think, I don't know what is the candy for the Kenyans that could facilitate.
Was data protection an issue? Was it an issue amongst people to say, look, we are giving all our information to government. How are we then guaranteed that our identification is safe?
Well, in Estonia, we have a unique situation where the trust towards the government is actually pretty high. So, and why it's so is that the government is acting quite transparently, and the people, we have even developed it further. We had, at the time when the ID card was rolled out, all the data protection regulations in place. And of course, we need to take into account Estonia. Now we need to also be in line with the European side. So in that sense, you are a little bit even privileged that you can do it everything inside your own country, right? So, but that time we had local or the country regulations for the data protection. So, and people actually did not have the issue with their data, because they also see that the benefit they could have from having this unique identifier was much greater than giving away a piece of their identity, maybe.
When does an individual, a citizen of Estonia, get integrated into the system? At what point in their life? How are they integrated into the system?
It's a very good question, but in Estonia, you actually first, when the child is born, actually, and the hospital send the data to the population registry, and the child receives the unique identifier. So before even the child has the name, it has the unique identifier.
It's from birth.
It's from birth, yes. So, and everything else that builds up on that is already a continuous way.
It's very interesting. So essentially, if it was Eric, so it would be Huduma identify number 34678. Then the name and then
for a number of days.
Yes, then the name follows.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, Estonians mostly know their ID code by heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very common that you go for the pharmacy and they ask you not the document or your name. They said, please say your ID code, and they give you the medicine or prescription or whatever. So
based on your number.
Based on number, it's 11-digit code, and most of the people know it.
So what you're saying is that with digitization, every aspect of service that you can expect from your government, and every department or agency or institution also has all this information in place. So simply by mentioning that number, all the information that is required is actually available.
Well, yeah, but of course on the need to know basis, so it depends on the service. It's not so that the government official who provides the healthcare service can access the data of some other field or financial or tax information. It is definitely very strictly only available for those who need to work with current set of data.
So there are various layers to
Yes.
the access to information, but all of it is in the same.
Yes, it's
system.
the role-based access basically for the data. So in Estonia now we have implemented recent years to increase even more the transparency. We have this kind of system that every person can see who has been accessing their data. In our citizen portal, we have a service, data tracker service, so that I can go there and see what kind of government officials and why have accessed our data. So you can be sure that no one else has done that. So
And is it like 100% transparent to the citizen? Can I tell when the intelligence officer has looked at my data?
these can be very specific cases that come so regulated by law if it can be done, but it has to be like under criminalist investigation or something but usually it's not allowed.
Okay.
Philip, as this rollout initially, I mean, before all the court and injunctions and stopping of everything, would you say that there was an understanding by the general population of what was about to happen? And then making it mandatory, or, it was, you had to come out and get this card. Those two seem to be, there seems to be dissonance between the two. Like, here we are sharing this information about why you need this, and then we're making you come out and get it. Was there a reason why then it was made mandatory? And do you feel enough information was shared in the initial steps?
Thank you. Well, the predicament we are facing in this country is a bit different from the Estonian one, because you realize that we were developing for the first time in history, a single national population register in Kenya, which has not been there. What has been there before is different sets of data being managed by different identity registration agencies differently. Different sets of data being managed differently in what you can normally call in a silo or whatever setup. So you find that now you have information in your birth certificate that is not reading the same in your national ID, that's not reading the same in your passport, yet you're the same person. So this actually was providing an opportunity for fraudsters to operate in. And also it was a very fertile ground for identity theft. You remember there were some times whereby your passport gets lost in Nairobi, you are sure somebody else is going to duplicate it and use it to travel.
Yes.
And there was even a time whereby the first generation ID, you could steal somebody's ID, pluck out the picture, put yours, laminate it, and you proceed. So with this kind of setup and historical background that you're coming from, it was important for us to consolidate the identity registration regime in this country into one, to avoid all those issues we're talking about, mainly fraud. Kenya had been hit so hard by terrorists at some point, and these terrorists who had infiltrated our country had obtained identity documentation, Kenyan identity documentation. How did they get that? So we had a very strong feeling of consolidating and securing identity data. Now, being the first time that Kenya is doing this, the challenge was how do you rally people marshal people to come and register? And remember, for you to start a population database from scratch, you must register a big mass of people so that now you can have some data to start working on, and then the rest of the people missed out can now join as you continue. That is normally the practice all over the world if you're starting a population database. You don't just go and consolidate the ones that are existing and merge them together. You'll merge them with a lot of errors that have been existing before. So you create a new one. Now, the question is, how do you marshal people? You can do it in many ways. You can create an incentive. You can create maybe a use case and that is appealing to people. You can use the method maybe we used, telling people by this date you must register. Now, to go back to the issue, why did we give people timelines? We had, for you to register, capture a population database of Kenyans for the first time, a mass registration must happen. Mass registrations means quite a number of things. You have to procure biometric kits, which we did. About 35,000 biometric kits were procured. We have them up to now. You have to hire casuals. You have to hire staff to do that because it's a temporary activity. It's like the way we do census. You have to hire quite a big number of people. So for us, we had to hire upwards of 42,000, actually 50,000 people if you bring in the government officers. These 50,000 people, you're paying them 1,000 shillings per day. Times 50,000. That's 50 million in a day. Then we did the exercise for a period of 54 days. These 54 days included His Excellency, the President's extension of 1 week. So 54 days times 50 million shillings per day. You can imagine how much money that is. And given the way the Kenya is currently, we have limitations in terms of money availability. So we had a fixed budget. So we had to set up a timeline, a fixed timeline, so that within that budget, within that period of time, we register as many people as we are. So people had to be marshaled, people had to be coerced, people had to be motivated,
the government had to be government.
It had to be so that people would go and register. And by the way, by us doing that, we got 37 million Kenyans, which is it's a big achievement. I don't remember any other
What success rate was that? I mean,
even the elections
against your
getting
target.
people to vote, you don't get numbers
You
like
don't
that.
get those numbers. IBC is struggling to get to meet
Maybe
the
they
target.
can ask you how you did it.
Yes.
Just become
For
government.
us.
28 minutes to 8. Let's take a break at this point. We are having a conversation with the Senior Administrator for Huduma Number, Philip Lemarasia from the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. We're also having a conversation with Sylvia Lips. She is from Estonia. She is one of those who worked in the government of Estonia to roll out their own Huduma Number. We know about it. It's called Eric.
Do you know that we are not going to hear the end of this thing for the next 12 months?
Why would you want to hear the end of Eric?
See, it has begun.
Surely. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly after taking a look at the weather and traffic.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions in parts of Nairobi. The sun is peeking through the clouds, though. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 16. Partly sunny at 15 in Nakuru. Highs of 28 and lows of 14. 11 will be the low in a sunny Nyeri at 12. Going to highs of 28. 26 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 14, and we'll see lows of 11. Mostly sunny conditions at 26 in Mombasa, going to highs of 32, while we'll see highs of 31 in Malindi, where it's cloudy this morning after the rain at 27. Mostly cloudy at 20 in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 19, while Kakamega is sunny at 15. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 14. Still coming down heavy in Kampala at 18 degrees, highs of 27. That rain likely to continue for most of today. Mostly cloudy at 25 in Dar es Salaam, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Lagos, partly cloudy at 28. We'll see highs of 33 and lows of 26, while sunny conditions in Johannesburg rule the morning at 17. Highs of 27 and lows of 15. And it's clear in Kinshasa at 23. We'll see highs of 33.
Chilled Spice.
We're in traffic hour proper now, a few minutes after 7:30. Still seeing it coming in hot and heavy on the Thika Superhighway today. And that is going to continue for some time from all indications. Uhuru Highway taking the hit from left and right, whether it be Haile Selassie on this side, Gongoro on the other, looking at Langata Road on this side, Lusaka on the other, and going through to Westlands this morning. Kiambu Road, my goodness, well into the Coffee Gardens, and looking at inbound traffic on Limuru Road as well. Ring Road, Westlands, absolute mess. If you can avoid it, please do. Juja Road getting into the city is also quite thick right now. Everybody feeding off Outer Ring today, trying to get to the Thika Superhighway, and in the opposite direction, we saw some action on the Eastern Bypass today. Kangunda Road, Manyanja Road are doing that thing today, and it's quite heavy. All right, Jogo Road also, it's red everywhere you look. Mombasa Road, don't forget, as you're coming towards General Motors, that part of the road being sorted out. So if you can use the Southern Bypass through the ICD, think about it. And then let's talk on SpiceFM KE, Twitter, text 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It is
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In the studio with you this morning, Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, our guests. Sylvia Lips from Estonia. She is a PhD student from Tallinn University of Technology, TalTech. She's also one of those people who are involved in the rollout of Estonia's Huduma number. Estonia's services are 99% online government services. Everybody has a Huduma number in Estonia. Now in Kenya, we are rolling out Huduma number, and the person who's in charge of it, the senior administrator, Philip Lamarasia, is also with us in the studio from the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. He's a senior administrator for the National Integrated Identity Management System. I've got a question for you, Philip. You've told us the kind of hurdles that you've had since starting this project in 2018. Even going back beyond 2018, the conversation about integrating all personal data and information within government had started. Even in the Kibaki era, I remember hearing some conversations. In 2013, in fact, Jubilee's manifesto was talking about delivering this as one of their deliverables. So it was there in government. When you start rolling it out, and then you realize, we don't have a data protection law. We don't have data protection regulations. Oh my God, we don't have a department that will be handling this. We need to set it up and put it in law. Oh, no, we need to have, impact assessment framework in it. I ask you, had you done any benchmarking before rolling out this Huduma number project?
I think government had actually taken time to plan. And we need to remind ourselves that actually the attempt we're having now in the national rollout of Huduma number is actually the 5th attempt. There have been 4 other previous attempts in the history of this country. This is well documented. We can share the documentation on that with you. The first attempt was in 2008 when government tried to do a similar initiative. It could not go through. Another attempt was done in 2010, 2011 period. It did not go through. We had another attempt in 2012, 2013, and also another last attempt. Actually, there was even an earlier one in 2006. Mm-hmm. So if you combine the 2006 attempt, the 2008, the 2010 attempt, the 2012 attempt, those are 4 attempts on the rollout of this particular initiative. What were the problems at that time? The problems were mainly laboring on the legal mechanisms that were in place or were supposed to be put in place. And secondly, the procurement-related issues. You realize there's a lot of heavy procurement that is involved with this kind of project. So And when you talk about big procurement in this country, it is a road many people.
Yeah, we know.
You're not very comfortable going through. So procurement issues and legal issues crippled the other 4 previous attempts. And you can see the same problems is trying to haunt us.
Yeah, it's like you haven't learned anything from those previous attempts. That's the question I'm asking. I mean, having gone through these hurdles 4 times previously, legal. How is it that we get into 2018, we start another project, and one of the first things is legal hurdle? We don't have a legal framework that talks about protecting the data that we are collecting.
So now we have learned quite a lot, because you see, as at now, I mentioned earlier, we have already developed 4 legal instruments within a period of 2 years. The other 4 attempts, they had not developed much legal instruments. There was an attempt to do only maybe 1 legal instrument. Now, the learning process has been beneficial to us. But again, even in as much as we have learned the hard way, still, even implementing legal instruments as at now is still not easy. For you to develop an act, one particular act of parliament successfully from the concept, from the beginning when you're supposed to be doing public participation, all the way get it through parliament and convince the MPs for them to accede to it, one piece of legislation is a big task. It can take even 3-4 years down the line, as we've done 4. And we're actually doing a 5th piece of legislation, which will actually answer to all these legal hurdles. That's very important for Kenyans to know. This 5th piece of legislation, which is actually a product of lessons learned 4 years down the line and even now, is what we call the Huduma Bill. Huduma Bill has been drafted. We have drafted it since the last 2 years, in addition to the other bits of legislation. And this Huduma Bill is currently in Parliament. We developed it through all the stages that were supposed to be taken through before Parliament, and we successfully submitted it to Parliament. It has already gone through the first reading in Parliament. Currently, the Departmental Committee on National Security and Administration is engaging on the bill. Now, that particular committee is doing a very important thing for Kenyans as of now, because the process of development of the bill to become an act requires that once the bill is submitted to Parliament, the relevant committee picks it up, takes it through another round of public participation, another round of stakeholder engagement, in addition to what we had already done. Because even us, we did public engagement and we did stakeholder engagement. But now Parliament again does the same. This is just one of the ways to ensure that at the end of the day, as many opinions, suggestions, and constructive engagement is done on the bill. So right now, the parliamentary committee is handling this. We have had stakeholder engagements with them in Mombasa last weekend. This weekend, we're meeting the civil society in Naivasha, so the civil society can have a chance to express their points on the bill. And when this happens, then the product, this particular bill, will become enriched. So any good, positive idea that can be accommodated into the bill will be done so by the parliamentary committee. And I wish you could give them a chance also to come here, the chairman of the parliamentary committee, to also tell you basically the journey they're taking this bill through, so that now it can be more clear.
Right. Sylvia, maybe give us an example, or maybe some experiences that a card like this, where essentially all your information is, how has that changed the experience of operation in Estonia, for example? What are things then that you're able to do when you have all this information in one place?
Well, basically, I think with this particular number, we have built our electronic identity on it, and electronic identity enables access to any service, basically, to be carried out online. So it means that people don't have to come and queue in the public offices anymore, so they actually save quite a lot of time. And based on some of the calculations that we have done, how much we have saved, so to speak, time, then it was mentioned in some of the sources that by having those actions or services online, citizens save about 7 days in a year to do something else with the time.
Just hold the thought. So you're saying every citizen saves the equivalent of 7 days?
Yes, every year.
So if you multiply that by the population, what's the population of your country?
Well, we have a small, you have already more successful than we have, that you have rolled it out for 7 million, you said?
37.
Okay, we have 1.3 million people,
Yes,
but still.
But 1.3 times 7. Those are many days.
Yeah, you're about almost 8 million.
Yes, so
days.
now you divide that by months and years. So essentially you're saying, in terms of the hours that you save, it amounts to a great deal of time. And that can easily be computed
Into something else.
And to understand what else you could have done with that particular
With that
time. Yes.
What was the uptake initially when you rolled it out in Estonia? And you're saying the people, they have the number, but they're not using the number because the services have not really been integrated. But legally, you hear the hurdles that we've gone through in this country. Legal. Did you have the same challenges?
From the legal side, actually, this EID or the ID card has been compulsory for every person. So every person has to have it. However, there is no liability that if you don't take the card, so then nothing
fine
happened.
You or toss you in jail.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. But I think the biggest actually punishment, so to speak, is that you just cannot have the services conveniently. Right. And I think
which is a punishment on its own.
Exactly. So I think this kind of soft measures, we have been more inviting people, not like threatening or keeping them away from the services. So and exactly giving this kind of small treats, and as people can see that they really benefit from it. So if you get already like one service very conveniently online, you come after for more.
Actually, talking of benefits, because I could argue that benefits are perhaps more attractive than anything that is punitive. One of the problems that a developing country like ours has is one of employment. And whenever we talk about automation, we talk about digitalization, we talk about machines taking over the role of people, the one thing that comes to our mind is our people will not have employment. How does such a system help with the employment or unemployment issue?
That's a good question, because what we have seen that, people a little bit afraid, especially from the government side, that, now the services are digitalized and now we might have not room for we don't have a job anymore. But actually this is not the case, because you open up for opportunities for more services, for more to the quality side. We see that actually we can use the existing workforce even more efficiently, and we can invest more this kind of manual and monotonic labor with something much more useful for our people good. So I think it's also one of those things that people are more even motivated from the government side to do something for the people, because you don't do this monotone work
all the time. Philip, Sylvia said something that was really interesting. In the beginning, there was really no deficit of trust when it came to government. Do you think that's a factor here? Because when this happened, there was outcry and said, so what is happening here? Government is trying to control us. They want to know where we are at all times. They want to be able to use this information to be able to control or curtail our activities or movement. Is the trust deficit of government an issue here? And then how do you then debunk and demystify these things which are reality for some people?
Yes, this idea is new to Kenya, and it's a big idea, a very big idea, very noble idea, very new, looking very strange. And you realize as human beings, we have resistance to change. It's a fact of life. That being the case, there had to be resistance unless people are really educated about the benefits of the project. So we face that resistance, not necessarily because people are against government, but because it's a new thing that is looking very strange. So we are here actually basically to try and demystify this, and I wish this engagement can be taken further and further in all media platforms so that we concentrate on talking about the benefits. For the Estonian population, they looked at how they could benefit by getting tax refunds. If you have an Estonian Udumacad, you're eligible for a tax refund. If you don't have, you don't get a tax refund. And people want money. So people actually rushed to get the card so they could apply for tax refunds. So it worked for them. For our case here in this country, we are looking at immediate beneficial use cases that may be more appealing to the public. And on this particular regard, we are working very closely with the NHIF, National Hospital Insurance Fund, who under the Universal Medical Cover Project that His Excellency the President is very passionate about. The NHIF is supposed to cover all Kenyans under the Universal Medical Coverage Scheme. We are working with them, and it will actually be one of the pilot use cases that we want to roll out. If we go that way, then we'll attract a very big population of Kenyans. Secondly, we also...
Philip, though, in this particular case, Estonia was an incentive, a positive incentive to use.
Yes.
The regulations that have been published by the Ministry of Health and NHIF on getting everybody into the compulsory membership of NHIF is sort of punitive. You are not an NHIF active member, you will not access government services.
And on top of that, we can fine you a certain amount of money.
No, so basically, NHIF,
you don't have the card.
Huduma number is now going to be used to be showing that this person has not paid an NHIF, so they will not have access to services.
We have also to change a lot of mindset for people. If you want medical services, currently the cost of medical cover is very expensive. How much is NHIF telling you to pay?
Currently, 500 or 17.
6,000 a year.
Yeah.
A year. That is a bit affordable for quite a big population of Kenyans, and even for the population of Kenyans who may not be able to afford that amount of money. Organizations, insurance schemes, other small level insurance schemes can come in and assist those people. So we want to pilot with NHIF because you see, health is a factor everybody wants to be involved in. Now, another use case that we're looking at is the pension benefit scheme, because currently the pensions department, originally as it was, had a lot of loopholes. So we're working very closely with them to ensure that pensioners also benefit as one of the pilot use cases. That one that I can mention for now is our cooperation and working relationship that we're having with the Inua Jamii social benefit scheme, whereby the disadvantaged population in this country are getting monthly stipends to support them. So we want to partner with the organizations handling that, so that we also give access, fast, efficient, effective access to social benefit scheme if you have a Udumacad. Because again, at the end of the day, all these institutions, NHIF, pensions, and social benefit scheme require their members to register biometrically before they get the services. Yet we have already registered Kenyans biometrically. So why that duplication? Because biometric registration is not cheap. You have to hire casual laborers in their thousands. You've got to procure the biometric kits in their thousands also. You also have to procure softwares to manage the systems, which is very, very expensive. So why should the different government agencies do biometric registration differently for the same Kenyans that we have also, again, as Huduma number, registered biometrically, and we have their data? So we're trying to cure that particular duplication and to make it very cost effective and save the country money, because already we have a problem of funding in based on the treasury.
Philip, do you really believe that the user experience then will change this mindset?
The user experience, yes, will change the mindset of Kenyans significantly. It has been a new project, it's a new idea, so naturally there'll be resistance, but it's upon us to be able to debunk and explain to Kenyans the benefits more. We dwell on the benefits more. And again, we must remind all of us that this project is not a Kenyan idea. Estonia is here with us. They're telling us how they've successfully rolled theirs. If you look in the social media, you can see issues about Ghana. Ghana, they are much ahead of us. They started behind us. They're now ahead of us. Actually, their digital ID has become a digital passport, electronic passport. But here in Kenya, we're playing catch-up now to Ghana, which is unfortunate. We should have been ahead of them. And again, the idea about digital systems, digital identity card, answers to very important pieces of international legislation. For example, the Constitution of Kenya itself provides that it's a right for Kenyans to be registered, registered securely. The current registration may not be very secure. That's why we're having infiltration by foreigners into our registration systems. So the Constitution of Kenya talks about It's a right of Kenyans to be registered. Article 6 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights basically says that everybody has a right to be registered and recognized before the law as an individual. That's Article 6 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If you want to talk about the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child, it states that every child has a right to be registered.
Yep.
Again, we need to mention that on the same note, the United Nations is very passionate about legal identity, very passionate about it. That to the extent that the United Nations, as part of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG number 16.9, talks about legal identity for all. And on this, the UN is very keenly monitoring the Kenyan rollout. In fact, they have a task force that they have set up to monitor the Kenyan rollout, the United Nations itself. They have a task force set up specifically to see how we are rolling out in Kenya among the other 13 countries in Africa who are trying to do similar initiatives. So we hope that we'll be the first, so that we become a case study for the rest of Africa. But it's okay. We are still we're getting there.
We're still on course.
We're getting there.
Answer this key concern also by many that this is like Big Brother watching. You give just all your information to the government. The government has access to all your information at the same time. It's Big Brother watching. It facilitates government spying on you all the time. This is not just a Kenyan concern. It's a global concern. How would you respond to that, those concerns?
Well, government needs to know its people. But in as much as we say that, we need to also remember that already government has your data. Your immigration data, your birth certificate data, your ID data is with government. It's not with a private entity per se. So what we're just doing is putting all that information, all that data into one basket for ease of management, for convenience, and the rest. But in as much as we say that, we also realize that we have gone to a great extent to develop the Data Protection Act. And I said also we developed the Data Protection Civil Regulations to manage Huduma number system. That we have done. And also the Huduma Bill that we're developing. Now, the Huduma Bill and the Data Protection Act provides very punitive measures for people who violate data, be it a government officer, be it any other person, any other entity for that matter. So if you violate usage of somebody's data as a government officer, as government itself, you will now be at very serious crossroads with the Data Protection Act on one side, and again you'll be violating the Huduma Bill, Huduma Act. Assuming the Huduma Bill becomes an act, we've also put punitive measures within the Huduma Bill for violation of data. So for any violation of data, you'll actually be facing two charges. One from the Data Protection Act and one from the Huduma Act, if it sees the light of day. Yeah, so that's one measure to ensure that at the end of the day, in as much as government has your data, the government officers are not misusing their data. The punitive measures go to the extent of, for one violation, you pay to the tune of $30,000, which is 3 million Kenya shillings. So if you're paying 3 million Kenya shillings under Data Protection Act, another 3 million Kenya shillings under Uduma Act, why would you even try?
Strong deterrence.
Yes,
as we conclude the conversation, Sylvia, did you face the same kind of concerns from the citizens of Estonia? Is the government going to spy on me now that I'm giving it all this information?
Well, in Estonia, it's slightly different because we are not keeping all the data in one big database. We have developed our special solution. It's called X-Road. So it's kind of a highway between the different databases. So if you have, for example, your personal identification data in one database, your health data in other one, your document data in third one, and between all those different databases, when you need the services, we have this kind of secure data exchange layer that we have built that enables secure access to the particular information, what is needed for the particular service that is provided. So we have a little bit decentralized approach and made it even more hard to actually violate this kind of laws and to ensure that actually this kind of big brother thing is not the issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Sylvia Lips is from Estonia. She's a PhD student at Caltech. This is Tallinn University of Technology. She's also one of the officers who helped Estonia roll out its Huduma number. And we also have the Kenyan Huduma number administrator, Philip Lemarasia, the senior administrator of the National Integrated Identity Management System. Identity Management System. That's a Huduma number. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And come back again soon.
Thank you.
Keep it right here for more. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is News Around Dennis Settle. President Uhuru Kenyatta has assured global investors that Kenya is open and safe for business, saying there is political and economic stability ahead of the 2022 elections. Speaking when he launched celebrations to mark the Kenyan National Day at the Expo 2020 in Dubai, President Kenyatta said his administration has put in place a legal framework for investment that provides adequate investor protection in line with most international standards, including safeguards for property rights.
As a country, we are in a strong position to expand trade, and Kenya, without doubt, is the largest economy in Eastern Africa. It is the business hub for the region and has sufficient capacities in trade facilitation and logistics to serve over 11 hinterland countries in Eastern and Central Africa.
He added that Kenya enjoys political and economic stability, a fully liberalized economy, and a large domestic consumer market, a youthful, skilled, and productive labor force, as well as a modern infrastructure network.
We wish to assure that Kenya is open, that Kenya is safe, that Kenya looks forward to your business, to your partnership. The legal framework for investment provides adequate investor protection in line with most international standards, including safeguards to property rights.
Now, Kenya's Security Department has received a boost in the arm after British High Commissioner Jen Marriott handed over forensic equipment worth 4.5 million shillings to Kenya in a bid to boost the country's war on terror. Marriott underscored that the new equipment will significantly boost the performance of pathology and forensic units in the country, which allow them to bring terrorist offenders to book. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has directed school principals to recall students who have been sent home over fee arrears. The CS said the ministry will be conducting an audit in all schools to ensure that all children are in for the national examinations, warning that no student should be disenfranchised because of fee arrears. The CS also assured all stakeholders that the government is working to ensure that teachers for grade 7 and 8 are trained, further giving assurances that the grade 6 teachers have already been trained.
As far as grade 6 is concerned, because we have had noise that we are building classrooms, what about the teachers? We are extremely prepared because all grade 6 teachers, we completed training them in December of last year. So all grade 6 teachers have been trained, in addition to the previously trained 230,000. I've also had people asking about grade 7 teachers that, we are now building classrooms supposedly for 2023, which is grade 7. The government of the Republic of Kenya, through the Ministry of Education and through the Teacher Service Commission, is going to train all the teachers for grade 7 and grade 8 in April of this year.
Now, the High Court in Meru had reinstated Mohammed Abdi Mahmoud as governor of Wajir. The court ruled that the process of removing Mahmoud was unlawful and the swearing of Deputy Governor Ahmed Mukhtar was null and void. According to the court, the County Assembly did not provide evidence of public participation in the removal of Governor Mahmoud. Governor Mahmoud was impeached on allegations of gross misconduct, abuse of office and financial impropriety. 37 MCAs voted in favor of the impeachment motion while 10 opposed his removal from office in April 2021. The court also ruled that the current deputy governor leaves office. The preparations are in high gear for the inauguration of Speaker Muthui as the Democratic Party presidential candidate this coming Sunday. Muthuri's Director of Presidential Election Joe Muthui and Democratic Party Secretary General Shukri Haji say all is set for the event where DP delegates will unveil Muthui as their preferred candidate and bless him to seek the highest office in the land. The two spoke at the JB Muthui Center in Nairobi, where they exuded confidence that the presidency narrative on favorites will change once Muthui enters the race officially. And the United Democratic Alliance will hold its party primaries from 9th to 16th of April across all counties in line with IEBC deadlines. National Elections Board Chairperson Engineer Anthony Moura reiterated the Deputy President William Ruto assurances that the party primaries will be free and fair. In its first engagement with the media since its inauguration 25th of January, the board said preparations are in top gear to ensure the primaries are held in a manner acceptable to all. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so we have traffic on most major streets in the city today. We're looking at the Thika Superhighway, which still continues with that drama today and trying to get into the CBD. What else are we looking at? Along Gong Road, some traffic is picked up there as well as you get to the roundabouts. Folks are asking what's going on Mombasa Road today. So we have a tailback of traffic, and that's because of the construction going on right around Imara Daima, and that's going to continue for some time this morning. Then going into the Eastern Bypass, some traffic there. Uhuru Highway, of course, from the beginning to the end. Alpha and Omega traffic is what we're looking at today. Let's keep an eye on things this morning. Let us know where you might be stuck apart from Uhuru Highway. We know that one is already there. We can do very little about that at this point. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
It is
This
7
the
minutes after 8,
situation.
Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues. This is the third hour of the show this lovely Thursday morning, 17th day of February 2022. We are live on SpiceFM around the country, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. We are also live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook around the country and to the world. There's somebody who said hello to us from Meru, saying they are watching or following our live stream from Meru and asking us, when shall you bring a Meru frequency? In Akuja. In 6 months' time.
Wow.
Meru frequency will be complete.
Around the same time that the expressway will be on.
Expressway is next
Even
week,
before.
boss.
Expressway is before that.
Expressway is next week. Have you forgotten? It's March. We have a guest in the studio. Today is Justice Thursday. And remember, we have conversations around access to justice every Thursday in the Situation Room. Before we introduce her, let's hear the day's proverb from CT.
Water in the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
Water in the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
Water will flow. You and your thirst, up to you.
When you get thirsty, just go to the river.
Yes, and even if you don't go to the river,
it'll still
flow.
All right. The Honorable Caroline Kendagor is the Mediation Deputy Registrar in the Judiciary. She joins us now in the studio to have a conversation here. Good morning, Honorable Kendagor.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Eric. I'm happy to join in the show.
Karibu sana. Now, Mediation Deputy Registrar. Let's just start from there. What is that?
Thank you very much. I serve as a Mediation Deputy Registrar. I am employed in the Kenya Judiciary as a magistrate, but I perform administrative support. In this instance, I serve at the secretariat known as the Court Annexed Mediation Secretariat, which is a national secretariat that oversees the implementation of the use of court annexed mediation as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. And the secretariat coordinates the courts that are where we have rolled out and are implementing mediation.
What is court annexed mediation?
Court annexed mediation is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. In this instance, anchored in court or under the umbrella of the court. And mediation is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism where parties in dispute are assisted by a neutral third party to reach a negotiated settlement, different from the adversarial resolution where the disputes are heard and resolved by judges or magistrates.
How do you decide what goes towards court annexed mediation?
We have a screening criteria where we look at the cases that have already been filed. The current model that we have enables parties whose cases have already been filed in court to benefit from the process. And we look at a number of issues for those cases where we give a classification that pleadings have closed, which is generally really that all the documentation that needed to be filed by all the parties in dispute are already in place. And most of the cases that we have in our courts are legible to benefit from court annexed mediation. Mm-hmm. The only criteria that we sieve through are three cases that we do not refer to mediation. One is cases where we call them the public interest litigation cases. Those ones may not be suitable for referral to mediation unless there's a discretion by a judge or a judicial officer in a conversation that involves all the parties. We also do not refer cases to mediation where there are issues to do with allegations of domestic violence, child abuse, sexual violence, or any cases where we feel like there's an imbalance of power that would generally interfere with the negotiation of the parties in mediation. We do not send such kind of cases to mediation. Cases where there are perpetration of criminal intentions. And then third is we also do not send cases to court annexed mediation where the parties have expressly given an intention that they would like to explore a different alternative dispute resolution mechanism, for example, arbitration.
Okay. So there's a difference between arbitration and court annexed mediation.
Yeah. Yes, there's a difference between arbitration and court annexed mediation. And if you'll allow me to just add in again that the difference that would come in with the adversarial dispute resolution in the court process. In mediation with and arbitration and again in the adversarial resolution in court, all of them, the third parties are neutral and impartial. The difference is that in mediation, the role of the impartial third party is to assist the parties to reach a negotiated settlement. So the mediator does not act as a judge, does not impose the outcomes on the parties, but rather just facilitates the parties to be able to come into a discussion and come up with a negotiated settlement.
Okay.
In arbitration and the court process, the arbitrator and the judicial officer actually determine the outcome and control the process as compared to what happens in mediation. And in the difference, of course, between arbitration and the court process is that in arbitration, the third party is an arbitrator, and in court we have the judges, magistrates, and the cadis.
Mm-hmm. What happens in mediation if you do not reach this negotiated settlement, that you've gone into mediation, you've been there for however long a period of time, and still folks are not able to agree? What happens then?
We try to really have conversation with our litigants prior to even referring the cases to mediation to just see that they understand the process and appreciate the benefits that would come with it. And of course, we are very happy to receive cases that are settled successfully so that we don't have to have them again go through the hearing and determination process by the judges and magistrates. But even then, as we give this avenue, which is we are extending to our parties, we do not necessarily tell them that they must go and agree.
Okay.
The replication model we have assumes a mandatory nature only in the terms that once your case is screened and found suitable for referral to mediation, then you are required to submit to the process, to abide by the rules of engagement and the statement of understanding that the parties and the mediator will arrive at, but we do not tell them that they must go and agree. So where they fail to reach settlement, we have these cases back in court. We give directions that facilitate their hearing and determination. And out of experience from the cases that we already have, is that even when parties do not reach a settlement in the mediation process, as at the time they are coming in for the hearing and determination before the judicial officers, it is seamless, it is less protracted, and the cases move faster, and parties sort of have a common approach in terms of how they relate with each other during the dispute resolution.
How do you enforce the outcomes of both mediation and arbitration?
For arbitration, the arbitrator's award is forwarded to court, and it is adopted and enforced. Similar for the agreements that are arrived at under court-annexed mediation, they are adopted before the judge or the judicial officer who referred the matter to mediation, and they carry the same weight that they would carry with regard to a decision that would have been made by either a judge or a magistrate. And we proceed to issue the orders and decrees in the same manner, just like the other cases that have been determined, and they are enforceable in a similar manner.
Can they be appealed as well?
Under court-annexed mediation, the right to appeal is taken away just purely to be able to avoid the issue of litigation by installments and the delay that would come with it. And of course, we'd really like to ride on the fact that this is a decision where the parties arrived at in a negotiated process. They had the opportunity to participate with any personal representatives of choice. And the reason why that is open is to be able to ensure that sometimes some of the cases that come before us do not necessarily fall within or are not between the disputants in court, and may be stretched out to either people whom the parties are litigating under, or families in succession and family disputes. So to avoid that back and forth process, the mediation process gives the parties an advantage that litigation comes to an end once they sign and execute the settlement agreement.
Honorable Kendago, just give us an example of a case that goes before a judicial officer, and then the judicial officer then sends it to the court-annexed mediation. Just a case study.
Thank you. This would be a case which would either be have been filed at the registry and either does not have a date before a judicial officer. In that instance, we look at the pleadings, they've closed, and we screen it in a pretrial process where we look to examine whether it falls within the criteria that I had talked about earlier. The second bit in which this matter can again come to mediation is for those cases that are already before the judicial officers and the judges, and in a judicial discretion, they have looked at the file even when pleadings have not closed, and they find that the cases can benefit from mediation. The other third process would be where parties themselves request to be referred to court-annexed mediation. We prepare notices notifying parties that their cases have been found suitable and have been referred to mediation. We appoint a mediator from a register that is kept by the Mediation Accreditation Committee, and we communicate to that mediator that they have been appointed to act as mediator. Thereafter, the mediator will contact the parties and advocates in the matter. They will come for a session, which can be either physical or virtual. They will set up their own rules of engagement, which would just facilitate a coordinated process. And then thereafter, they would notify us of the progress in mediation, and we're happy to receive the outcomes, which would either be that they settled or failed to reach settlement.
Without giving specifics of a case, can you take us through one case that has successfully gone through this process, and then you'll tell us the benefits of it?
Thank you. We've had lots of success stories out of mediation, both in the family and I'd like to give a classification of the other disputes which would fall under the civil category. We have an example of a dispute that was pending in court for 30 years, a succession cause that was very protracted. And as at the time we were referring the matter to mediation, the parties who had applied or petitioned to be administrators were deceased. We were actually at a third generation as at the time the matter was being referred to mediation. And parties were able to reach a settlement by agreeing on the administrators for the estate, and they further went on to even agree on a schedule of distribution, which had taken a very long time and had really strained the relations of the family. Another example is a commercial dispute that had been pending in court for over 15 years, which was resolved in 15 days in mediation, and released money that had been locked up in litigation, where as at the time, in fact, parties were almost at the age of just giving up with monies that had been deposited. They cannot access them, neither of them, and the dispute was on and on. And out of the settlement agreement that they reached at, they not only accessed the money, but again, they restored the contractual relation that existed between them.
In the case of the succession, a 30-year-long dispute,
Yes.
What was it in the court process that was keeping this matter in court for so long? And what was it that mediation helped to avoid or to resolve?
Mediation looks at more in terms of interests as opposed to the law. So when you take a hard line of the law, you might not necessarily be able to resolve the dispute. And then again, what parties indicate in pleadings is not necessarily the situation back at home, or sometimes even what is required in the resolution of the disputes is not something that can be issued by the law. And in this particular instance, the party that had taken a hard line were actually feeling like they were being taken advantage of, and sometimes just an apology or just a recognition and an embrace as between family relations, and telling them that we recognize your position, you being a part of this family, and recognizing your interests for us to be able to come to the table and now just discuss as to how we can enforce what is already there.
At whose behest is it? Or can the parties request for this kind of mediation? Or is it at the behest of the judicial officer to now say, let's actually remove this from the court process and let's put it in mediation? Who makes the decision, or who can make a request?
Both. We can have the court make a direct issue directions that the matter is referred to court annex mediation, and we can also have parties requesting. The advantage of having the parties themselves request to go to mediation is that they are more amenable. You don't struggle with the explanation of the roles and responsibilities by virtue of you are getting litigants who already appreciate the benefits that would come with it, and they take a shorter time, and the outcome of their mediation is likely to settle all the issues in disputes.
Is a judicial officer mandated to offer that solution or suggestion to the parties before them?
We are bound by Article 159 of the Constitution, which requires that the judiciary promotes the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanism. So, of course, it is one of the major questions that comes in even with our litigants when we are telling them that we are referring them to mediation, because when they file the cases, they tell you that I filed my case so it can be heard and determined by a judge or a magistrate. So we have to sort of like share the journey and what is our role in this context of promoting by ensuring that this avenue is actually available to you, walking you through the rights and the responsibilities that would come with it, and generally controlling the process to ensure that the parties benefit in a similar manner that they would benefit if the cases were in court. And then, of course, again, beyond that is that We have also institutionalized the implementation of the use of ADR mechanisms. So currently in our performance measurement management, which we set targets every year, we have included a measurement on how, as judicial officers, we are promoting the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms.
Something that I've often wondered about, when people take matters to court, is it that they believe, that is of course in your experience, is it that they believe that this is where the matters will be resolved, or is that just the only option they think is available? Or is it that they don't actually, this alternate mechanisms for this dispute resolution, they don't actually fully understand it?
Yeah. The alternative dispute resolution mechanisms have actually been with us, and one of the biggest questions is really, what is the alternative? Is it the court that is the alternative, or is it these other dispute resolution mechanisms that are the alternative? And I would say quite a bit to do with a need for a culture change, for us to be able to appreciate that our disputes can actually be resolved through other mechanisms without necessarily having them being filed in court. If you'd allow me to just mention that currently there's a task force that's working towards an ADR policy that will give a formal recognition of the ADR mechanisms that we have in the country, which will now just help us to be able to not only give platforms that we can now sensitize and have people coming in on board to appreciate these ADR mechanisms, but will also provide frameworks under which we can sort of like benefit on these ADR mechanisms besides cases being filed in court, and to give us an opportunity that we can move away from the threat that anytime there's a dispute, we tell each other to kutane kotini.
Let me ask the question again, because you see there's a lot of information that is available to those who seek it. But if I'm thinking of our population, the majority of whom are actually in the rural areas, and who, like the rest of us, have issues that they require resolutions for, how, to what degree has our judicial system cascaded these processes to some of these parts of our population where, I think, in my mind, that mechanism perhaps would be received or accommodated easier if it was presented in a way that they feel would actually meet the needs or the requirements that they have. How far have we gone in cascading these services to our rural folk?
Thank you very much. With Quarter Next Mediation, we are currently at 17 counties, and we are hoping to hit a target of 25, and with a 3-year plan that we are hoping that by 2024 we'll have implemented in all our courts. The main issue why we embarked on our first implementation was really to do with financial implications that come with it. Under the process, the mediators are paid by the court and not the parties. And then there are also other infrastructural issues that would come in with the special nature of the kind of suits and rooms that are required for mediation, which are different from the conventional courts that we have. And then, of course, there's also quite a bit, as I mentioned, about culture change and the need for sensitization, which the judiciary has really taken up to just see that we are doing sensitization both in advance of the rollouts, but again, even when we do the rollouts, to be able to reach out to I would say all the village and people who perhaps may not have filed the cases but would need to know that as at the time they have disputes, they have these avenues. Is during the rollouts, we try to leverage on already existing institutions. So we leverage quite a bit on the national and county governments. We try to have a forum with the chiefs so they can just understand what the process is about. We do a lot of sensitization with both professional and community-based institutions for them to know who are these alternative dispute resolution people. Who are the mediators? Who are the elders? What are their roles? Who is eligible to apply to become an accredited mediator? So that they not only appreciate what the process is about, but again, they also know that they are not. It's not an area that is necessarily just locked up for lawyers or the legal profession. But it's not something that I can say the judiciary by ourselves alone can absolutely take up the issue of
Let me ask,
sensitization.
what are the qualifications? What do you need in terms of qualifications to be
a mediator?
Registered. He is not just mediator.
A registered mediator.
Yeah, you can just be mediating kienyeji, but now registered. The court, where the court recognizes you as a mediator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there are very good mediators out there who perhaps may not have gone through formal training as mediators, but they have the knowledge and the skills. But because this is a court process and under the umbrella of the court, we needed to have some form of regulation that would give the assurance of our clients that they are coming to a process that is regulated, that we have sifted through the mediators that we have on board, that they have the same capacity, the same code of conduct like the way they would have with the judges and the magistrates handling their cases. So because of that, we have an accreditation committee that is set up under the office of the Chief Justice, that we have applications that are made by eligible candidates, and they go through an accreditation process where the examination is to look at that they have trained as mediators. They should be having some sort of like background with a professional institution or affiliation that we can fall back to in the event that we need to enforce the code of any implications that come out of breach of the code of conduct. We not necessarily require that they must come from a legal field, but it's desirable that they have a first degree. And the examination on that they have already conducted mediations. And if they haven't, then we place them on a mentorship program, which they can subsequently apply to be given an active status once they have satisfied that they have experience.
Hey, wow.
It's
like med school.
It cannot just be a,
really good mediators.
tukatatue kinyumbani.
No. This one, from what?
Let's take a break. It's 8:30. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. The Honorable Caroline Kendago is with us. She is a mediation deputy registrar. We're talking about using mediation as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism, and this is court-annexed mediation, where you go take a case in court and the judicial officer says, would you consider seeking a way of having this matter resolved through a mediator? And then you go through that process. When do you use it? When do you not use it? That's what we're discussing this morning. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly on KTN Home, SpiceFM, and online.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Seriousness Maritim, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Seriousness Maritim, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, Nairobi, the sun is out today. We will see highs of 26 and lows of 14 coming into the day. All right, taking a look then into Nakuru, 18 degrees and partly sunny, highs of 29 and lows of 14. In Eldoret, sunny conditions at 18, highs of 26 and lows of 11. Looking into Nyeri, we'll see highs of 26 as well. Mostly sunny conditions in Mombasa at 28, highs of 32 and lows of 25, while in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 26. In Kisumu, sunny conditions at 22, highs of 29 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's sunny at 18, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Heavy thunderstorms continue in Kampala at 20, highs of 27 and lows of 19. While it's mostly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 27, we'll see highs of 32 and lows of 25. The sun is out in Johannesburg as well, highs of 27 and lows of 15, while partly cloudy conditions in Lagos at 27. 33 will be the high. It's also going to be a high of 33 in Kinshasa. It's currently sunny at 24.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Traffic continues on major streets in Nairobi this morning. Just looking at that clog up that's happening on Mombasa Road, and that's inbound traffic. It's flowing, so we're not at a bumper-to-bumper situation, but just take heed of that. You might want to use the southern bypass if you're in a hurry. We're also looking at Uhuru Highway, still continuing to do that thing all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout through into the city. But we're not looking at anything too painful, at least not this morning. Keeping an eye on things around the city. Let us know what's happening with you, just in case you run into something that we should know about. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94
5 minutes to 9. We continue. Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga. Our guest this morning, hashtag Justice Thursday, is the Honorable Caroline Kendago, Mediation Deputy Registrar in the Judiciary. We are talking about alternative dispute resolution mechanisms and specifically court-annexed mediation. Dominic had asked a question. Must one be a lawyer to be a mediator, and what do I need to do to know to be a mediator? And you just took us through that before we took the break. Requirements, among them first degree, and then you take them through some training, and then there's some vetting, basically just to make sure that they understand the process and the importance of the job that they're taking. And then they are accredited, and there's a department that does the accreditation under the Office of the Chief Justice. There are very many questions that will come after that. City has one.
I do. Because if I look at the court system we have in the country, it is tiered. You go from one level to the next and to the next, and for very good reasons. Now, if you are going to have a mediation process, this is really what I was asking. Should it also not be tiered? Because if you're talking about resolutions that emanate from, say, the simplest foundations of a community setup, does it require the same rigor as you would if you, say, took a case to the Supreme Court? The answer is no.
Yes. The answer is no.
Yes, there are things that can be resolved.
Yes, the answer is no.
Yes.
Yes, the answer is no. See, I'm speaking English.
Yes. No.
So what I was asking was this. Most problems that end up in court, in my view, end up in court because a resolution was not found at a level where these people who are in conflict could actually find or could perhaps seek one. Yes. So, and you had begun by telling us how it is that there is a process that is in play to ensure that at these levels, such matters can actually be resolved. So,
thank you very much, Titi. So what happens is, just to borrow through from the issue about the accreditation, is that we are coming from the instance where these are cases that have already been filed in court.
Yes.
Then, so to be able to give that reassurance is the one now that we have the accreditation and more of like an examination on the kind of mediators that we are having on board, to be able to have the clients benefit of a similar process that they would if they were appearing before a judge or a magistrate. The other platform that would be there around the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms are those ones that are held at grassroots level, where parties discuss the issues in dispute and they may reach a settlement. And currently with the legal framework that we have, we do not have an opportunity where they can come and file those settlement agreements directly in court without necessarily having to file cases in court seeking their recognition and enforcement. We are working on mediation rules that will give an opportunity to the parties to be able to enter into settlement agreements outside court annexed, which is cases which have not been filed in court, and which does not necessarily mean that these mediators must be the mediators that we already have under the court annexed mediation program.
Okay.
But there would have to be quite a lot to do with capacity. Ensure that the kind of settlement agreements that are coming in will be valid agreements that can be recognized and enforced in law. And when that happens, then we'd be able now to be an added advantage to the use of mediation compared to where they have to file their cases in court and then seek to benefit from court annexed, and now giving them an opportunity that they can reach a negotiated settlement outside without having to file cases in court. But they can bring those agreements to us in court. They are recognized, they are adopted, and they are enforced like the way a judgment or an order would be.
You know, there's a whole system in our communities, right?
Yes.
Like you're saying, actually the judiciary is in many cases referred to as the alternative dispute resolution mechanism.
Yes.
We had all this. We have the injury in checker, we have the loibon, we have all of these elders. Do you recognize what is decided by the elders? For example, if there was a dispute and it's taken to the injury checker and the wazir of the injury checker decide this is what is going to happen, and the matter then comes before you, would you consider that like it's an appellate stage of what was already being resolved down there?
It would really not be an appellate stage, but we have cases that are already in court that we divert into the alternative justice system. So we refer to already existing mechanisms that are available, either at the village elder or at the chiefs, or just setups within the communities, and we ask them to sit, discuss with the parties. And they come up in most cases with a settlement, which is may not necessarily be acceptable to the parties, but it is something that a decision that was arrived at by the elders. And then we have those instances where there are those settlement agreements I would say outcomes that are arrived at in such situations that may not necessarily be cases that have been filed in court. So in those instances, in both of these instances where there are cases that are in court and in instances where the alternative justice system is done but the cases are not in court, they are bound by they are bound by our constitution. So they must be within the articles of our constitution on human rights, and they cannot derogate in any way from that. Where these outcomes are being brought to court, we do sort of like give them a recognition, but they are not necessarily binding on the court. So the court can consider what the outcome and the deliberations that happened in those forums, but they're not necessarily binding in court, which would be different from now the setup that we have under court annexed mediation, because when the parties reach a settlement, we adopt and it is binding.
Okay. You talked about, going into the rural area, and then because of funding that would happen, maybe at a later stage, rolling that out. And then with AJR, we had Justice Ngugi here who told us about working with the community on certain levels. Now, as we look at court annexed mediation, also trying to go into the rural areas and probably dealing with a lot of cases that may not necessarily have the required judicial documentation. Do you see any blurred lines between the two, court annexed mediation and AJR, or are they complementary to one another?
I would say they are complementary to one another. Both of them are initiatives by the judiciary with the same objectives, that would have our clients have a different experience with the court process. And in all instances, we are giving the control of the resolution of these disputes to the parties. So they complement each other. We work a lot together in terms of sensitization, so that we ensure that even as we talk about alternative dispute resolution, our parties or our clients would understand what are these mechanisms that are all available to them for use.
There's something that, as you were speaking, my mind went to. I was thinking about other institutions within government, and I was thinking of the education sector and how it is the training and teaching is tiered. Early childhood education, primaries, and the qualifications that were required at every stage was intended to meet the needs of that particular stage of a child's growth. Okay? Then I looked at the health sector, and I looked at how the health sector has grappled with alternate ways of dealing with health problems in communities, and specifically thinking of traditional birth attendants, okay, what they called TBAs, and how it took time for the health sector to actually integrate these people into the system. And I'm saying integrate because the communities already accepted these people as healthcare providers.
Yes.
They did not need the Ministry of Health to tell them. They already accepted. And there are many people who are born through this very same system. Now, integrating them into the so-called formalized system simply meant that you are enhancing the experience of those who needed these services.
Yes.
It is with that thought in mind, again, that I'm actually going back to this because the need to train people, without a shadow of a doubt, is necessary. It's absolutely. The need for accreditation of some sort, also necessary, so that people feel that there's a safety in the way people are going about it. And they also understand basic guidelines. So one community to another, you're talking about the same thing. Yes. My problem is this. When you say in 3 years we will have reached the grassroots, what exactly will we have reached the grassroots with?
Thank you very much. We will have facilitated them by setting up mediation registries across our court stations, which means that would move away from the 17, as I mentioned already, which does not necessarily mean that the other courts that do not fall within the 17 cannot implement. But we are moving on a phased aspect, and the classification really is we're just giving priority to the courts that have huge case backlog. We are giving priority to courts that have a long case turnaround time, and we are giving priority to our courts who have a low customer satisfaction survey. And then again, there's the bit I think you mentioned about the education and just generally where we are coming from is we come from, I think, a background as a country where the only dispute resolution mechanism that is taught even right through in our structured training in schools and right through even to the trainings in colleges, the advocates, we are given a background that dispute resolution can only be through litigation. So, to be able to cap that as an institution, we are working very closely with the training institutions that are there, the schools of law, to be able to start right through with a culture change at that instance with the lawyers that are coming into the field so that we can not only help our clients to appreciate, but again, we can also as ourselves participate well in terms of our responsibilities and roles in mediation.
Do you face challenges when, as a judicial officer, you are proposing to the parties, there's an available mechanism that you can use outside this court?
Yeah.
Do you face challenges, and sometimes you see those challenges actually coming from the lawyers who should know better, but they are saying, hey guys, no, this is the best way to go?
Yeah, well, for a very long time, one of the issues that we struggled to have our colleagues in the legal profession to understand and work with us along is that ADR does not necessarily mean that their returns are diminishing in any way. I remember at some instance when we would talk about ADR as alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, one of our colleagues in the legal profession said it is accelerating diminishing returns. But we'd like to look at it more like this is an instance that we're giving you an avenue to be able to resolve your dispute faster. Your clients live there happy. It is less protracted, which means that even the kind of energy that you spend there, yours is just purely to facilitate your clients by supporting them to understand the process, to guide them in the kind of settlements that they enter into. And then we also have them participating during the mediation sessions, which We have come a long way in terms of the sensitization and even come up with structured engagements where we can have the lawyers on board through engagements in their continuous professional development forums. We work very closely with the Young Lawyers Committee of the branches that we have. And then we have also set up bar and bench committees where we involve the mediators, that we can have feedback from the three groups of the lawyers, the judiciary, and the mediators that we have on board. To be able to take care of the kind of resistance that perhaps may come, we do case management for the cases that have been referred to mediation. So at every particular instance, there's a relation as between the deputy registrar who is in charge of the mediation files and the lawyers to just pick up, is there an issue that is going on that would require intervention? Is there anything that we can do to improve the process? Is there any feedback, for example, from the clients that perhaps they haven't communicated to us? And again, similarly, we get that kind of update again coming in from the mediators. Currently, 60% of the mediators that have applied are from the legal profession, very different from when we started, where majority of the mediators that we have were from social backgrounds.
There's something that I want to ask. You may not be the right person to ask it, but I'm going to ask it nonetheless.
Yes.
The police service are an integral part of the judicial system.
Yes.
Now, just like there's this training that you have for would-be mediators, do you think that the police service could also act as mediators? And do you think that they could also be trained? Because they deal with issues that require, in my mind, mediation on a daily basis.
Well, there are partners in the justice system, and a lot of what they do has a lot of effect in terms of just the experience of litigants in justice. So usually when litigants talk about the experience, they will say, I had a very bad experience with a case, and you'd basically think that that experience is right through from the court, but it starts right through from the time of your first engagement with any particular person in this roller coaster of the justice system. So yes, it's important that they also have that form of training on how to use the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to be able to know which ones should not go, so that we don't have instances where cases under the Sexual Offences Act, for example, are referred to ADR. But we also have other ADR mechanisms that we work very closely with the Director of Public Prosecution that would benefit more criminal cases. And there's quite an engagement under the National Council on Administration of Justice to just see that other partners in the justice system, including the police, are trained on what are the kind of ADR mechanisms that are there and how to go about it towards the facilitating parties to benefit from them. And we have a number of police people serving in the police who are trained mediators.
Okay. You mentioned 3 instances where cases would not qualify for mediation, court annexed mediation. You said when parties have chosen to go for arbitration, that's clear. When you have domestic gender-based violence, cases involving children, Sexual Offences Act, don't take them to mediation. That is clear. Then you also talked about public interest litigation. What's that?
Public interest litigation are cases that would require a formal determination by the court, which means that the interest that is in dispute here stretches through beyond the individual person of the parties that have presented it. Just to give an example is, for example, Eric, you and I cannot file a case in court today and decide to sign a settlement agreement that says that we are dividing Nairobi County into 2. We cannot have, for example, mediated agreements that would set up, for example, interfere with the date that we have on that is coming for our elections. So I'm just giving examples to just give a boring of what are this public interest litigation, which would span very many areas that cut through the services and the institutions that we have.
Is corruption not a public interest matter?
Corruption is not
public funds have been stolen.
Yes.
Okay, that's the allegation. And the person who's being taken through this process is being accused of having stolen or misappropriated or misused or misallocated or mismanaged public funds. And yet we see mediation in these cases.
Those are public interest litigation cases. There is another process that parties who have already been are going through a similar process in the anti-corruption courts or maybe before the anti-corruption agency, but I would not really call it mediation. It is some form of an ADR mechanism where you discuss on the return of the monies in this particular instance.
Plea bargaining.
Yes, okay. Yeah. So it's more like I would affiliate it more to a plea bargain. Which is different from mediation. So under court annexed mediation, our cases, we cannot have instances where they can come to court and say, we have agreed that it's no longer...
Tutaongea kinyumbani.
Tutaongea kinyumbani. No, that is public interest litigation that requires formal determination, and where they have to go through some other dispute resolution mechanism, they are already structured under our acts, our legislations, which would involve the agencies that we have under the Constitution to undertake those discussions.
Last one, is it encouraged from where you sit to have more cases pass through court annex mediation?
Highly encouraged, so we can not only improve the experience that we are having with the cases that we have in court, but again to be able to give parties an opportunity that they can actually control the kind of decisions that come out of the disputes that they have, so that they can have a win-win situation, which is not something that is possible for cases that are resolved by judges and magistrates or the kadhis. It is also highly encouraged just to be able to save not only on time, but also on money. And then again, so that we can do away with this issue of backlog, because the generation of backlog comes in right from cases that are coming in to the ones that are already there. So if we can embrace the use of alternative dispute resolution, we can then take advantage of these legal frameworks that are upcoming, that we can reach ADR settlements and just bring them to court for adoption and recognition and enforcement in case there's a dispute. And then now we would save the kind of judicial time that we have to be able to resolve the cases that are already there and the ones that actually require formal determination.
So speak to Kenyans as people are listening to this and they're thinking, okay, there's all we've been talking about, having cases resolved through mediation. What would you tell them? I mean, the message that you'd like to tell Kenyans when they're listening to this and they're thinking, tukutane kotini is the number one thing. Wewe, tukutane mbele.
I'd like them to be our ambassadors. I would like us to have a culture change shift from tukutane kotini to tukutane mediation. I'd like them to call upon any of our court stations to be able to ask about court annexed mediation. Feel free to contact us. We'd be happy to share our contact and answer any queries that they have. We'd like them to not only talk about mediation for those disputes that are already in court, but look at it from an angle that it is an ADR mechanism that they can benefit for even cases that have not necessarily been filed in court. We are happy to have more mediators coming in on board, and we are happy to continuously having Kenyans carrying up the sensitization to ensure that everyone gets to know that it is not only through litigation that disputes can be settled.
Mnalipa ngapi mtu akiwa mediator?
We have a token that we pay the mediators that handle our matters. It's really more of a honorarium because we pay 20,000 shillings per file, which is a very small compared to the amount of money that is out there for commercial mediation. We do not ask our clients to pay these fees for the mediators because they have already filed their cases in court, and we are working towards a sustainable model that would not only just facilitate but also give an avenue of those instances where you can actually come to court and decide that without filing my case at this instance, I want to be directly sent to mediation.
Honorable Caroline Kendagord, Mediation Deputy Registrar, thank you very much for joining us today, and asante sana for coming in Justice Thursdays. Time for us to say goodbye also to our audience on KTN Home. The conversations continue on SpiceFM, 2.5 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nakuru.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Afande umbo yako iko na
hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
looking at
day.
Safer internet is what we are wrapping up the hour with, and saying, coming off of Tuesday, the 8th of February, how do we make the internet safer for children? The CA, Communications Authority, has launched Cyber Soldiers, which is a brand new interactive game aimed at teaching kids how to recognize threats and vulnerabilities online. So, what are some of the best safety tips you know or you've learned? We'll share some of those as we come into the next discussions on this. We want to hear about your experiences online or dealing with cyber safety for you and your family. We'll share some of those tips, courtesy of the Communications Authority of Kenya, www.ca.go.ke/child online protection. Learn how you can keep your children safe on the internet.
Keep it right here for more conversations coming up in the next hour in the Situation Room. We'll open up the phone lines for you, 0719 012 600. It's 9 a.m.
Latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire, Dennis Aseto. Colleges have been urged to join the O3 Plus program, an initiative of the UN that seeks to boost the health well-being of students. The University of Nairobi and Mount Kenya University is spearheading implementation of Our Rights, Our Lives, Our Future program in the country so far. Vice chancellors from the two universities have called for the inclusion of colleges in the initiative, saying it will help students become wholesome and more useful to the community after graduation. The program is aimed at ensuring that young people in higher and tertiary education institutions in the Eastern and Southern Africa realize positive health, education and gender equality outcomes through sustained reductions of HIV infections, unplanned pregnancies and gender-based violence. Laikipia County has launched the 2022 Kenya Demographic and Health Survey targeting 34 cluster areas in the region. The exercise is aimed at monitoring demographic and health-related policies and programs to guide the government in the planning, implementation and assessment of population programs at the grassroots and national level. Laikipia County Commissioner Joseph Nyeri is appealing to residents from the selected clusters to cooperate with the data collectors and share useful information to make the survey a success. Now Hella intimates one of the government-making companies under the export processing zone has denied claims and lawful dismissal of employees. In a statement by company CEO Shamin Perez, there are no plans to change the legal name or ownership of Hella Intimates EPZ Limited. The company further denied alleged mistreatment of pregnant women and mothers, saying it fully adheres to all relevant labor laws in Kenya. Over 4,000 employees of the company had down their tools from the beginning of February to protest the alleged dismissal of workers entitled to payment of services benefits. And a section of Jubilee Party MPs have exuded confidence the party will emerge stronger again and secure a majority seats in the coming August 9th general election. Led by Ndaragwa lawmaker Jeremiah Kioni, the MPs also vowed they will not allow the Jubilee Party to be disbanded, adding that it's the only party that will give them a chance to be in the next government. Kioni has also confirmed that the Jubilee Party will work together with the Orange Democratic Movement in fielding a joint presidential candidate, while accusing the Deputy President William Ruto of pursuing the presidency for his own selfish interest. And fighters affiliated with the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front have been accused of committing atrocities including gang rape and assault in Ethiopia's Amhara region, according to the Amnesty International report. The report said TPLF fighters deliberately killed dozens of people, gang raped dozens of women and girls, some as young as 14, and looted private and public property in 2 areas of northern Ethiopia's Amhara region in late August and early September 2021. In the town of Kobo, Tigrayan fighters deliberately killed unarmed civilians, seemingly in revenge for losses among their ranks at the hands of Amhara militias and armed farmers. That's according to Amnesty, who based the investigation on interviews with 27 witnesses and survivors, 10 of whom marked the date of the massacre as September 9, 2021. Many people were found to have been killed execution style, shot in the head, chest or back, some with their hands tied behind their backs. Now, President Emmanuel Macron hosted African leaders for dinner in Paris ahead of an unexpected announcement that France is withdrawing its troops from Mali after nearly 10 years fighting a jihadist insurgency. It's expected that Macron will announce that French forces will leave Mali and redeploy elsewhere in the Sahel region following a breakdown in relations with the ruling junta. Macron is to travel to Brussels today for a 2-day EU-Africa summit. Now, Germany will start rolling back most of its coronavirus restrictions as the country's falling infection rate suggests the Omicron-fueled wave has peaked. Chancellor Olaf Scholz said after talks with regional leaders the 3-step plan, which includes allowing unvaccinated people back into shops and restaurants, will see Germany reach its Freedom Day on March 20th, as media have dubbed it. But he urged Germans to remain cautious and said they would have to keep wearing face masks. The pandemic is not over. Germany is the latest European nation to attempt a return to more normality, 2 years after the pandemic first emerged and upended people's daily lives and routines. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, we're looking at traffic still in this hour going into the city. Quite a lot of it on Uhuru Highway going outbound, and Langata Road continues with its thing today. Gong Road also some here and there, but nothing too crazy at the moment. It's been a good Thursday so far. Hopefully we can keep that for the next couple of hours this morning as we go in and out of traffic. Shouldn't be too bad. Nothing has popped up at us, so I think that's all right. Outer Ring, however, is a mess going from Donholm to Taj Mahal, or what was the Taj Mahal at some point. So that traffic continues there. Apart from that, we're looking also at traffic continuing on the Thika Superhighway for some time this morning, likely to be the state of things for a while. We're going to keep it that way for now. Let's see what happens in about a half hour. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your...
Thank you for keeping it locked on Spice FM. This is the Situation Room. On to the final hour of the show this morning. We begin it with the day's proverb.
Water in the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
Water in the river
flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
Okay. So this is an African proverb?
It's an African proverb. But
from which
from
part of
next
Africa?
African. From next week, I'm going to be
Do
specific.
they have cows?
Wow.
African.
From the Africa of Africa.
From
Yes.
the Africa that has cows or the Africa that doesn't have cows?
In Africa.
It's an African proverb which
From
has
Africa.
rivers. That is why I'm talking about the river which is flowing. And the rivers are not lakes. They are actually rivers. They flow.
To the rivers and the
But
next
they have
next
cows.
week, specifically, I said there'll be proverbs from Northern Africa.
Oh. Okay.
Then we'll move to the west. Then we'll move to the northwest. Then central.
Okay.
Then east.
Okay. Now, we talked about the NIHIF amendment bill, right? It went through the National Assembly. It went through the Senate. It passed through the Senate. It went to the President. The President assented it to become law. So now we have NHIF Act, which is NHIF Act of... I know that the bill went into Parliament in 2021. I don't know. Well, we have a new NHIF law, all right, which has revamped NHIF and says, among other things, is that every adult shall now be required to be a member of NHIF. Upon turning 18, you then become a member of NHIF and you start contributing towards NHIF. Those who are not able to contribute shall be identified by the government and they'll be called indigents. And these are people, for example, the elderly, persons living with severe disability, and people who are unable to raise this kind of money. The government will pay for them, the NHIF. Everybody else shall pay for themselves, NHIF. Now, NHIF is, of course, with the Ministry of Health, are required to publish regulations to bring life to the new NHIF Act. The NHIF has published those regulations, and it's a subject of the headline in the Standard this morning. It talks about now what the requirements will be. Number one, it looks at the graduated scheme of payment or contributions towards NHIF. Those who are earning less than 6,000 shillings will pay 150 shillings every month. Between 6,000 and 8,300 bob. Between 8,000 and 12,400. Like that, up to those who are earning around 90,000 to 99,999. They'll pay 1,600. And then beyond that, above 999,999, it becomes a percentage of your monthly income. That is different from what we have currently. What we have currently is we have, yes, the graduated scale according to how much you earn, and then getting to a certain level, 100,000 and above, you pay 1,700. Whether you earn 100,000, 101,000, or 1,000,000, or 1,000,000, you pay 1,700 to NHIF. Now they say anything above 100,000 shillings is 1.7% of the monthly income. However, this is not even a high number. According to data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, only about 79,000 people earn 100,000 and above anyway in this country. So the majority of the people are those who are in the lower bracket. So we're talking about in the ranges of 500 to 1,000 shillings contributions per month. It becomes mandatory. What we have currently is if you are formally employed, it is mandatory for you to contribute to NHIF. Going forward, as long as you are above 18, it is mandatory for you to contribute towards NHIF. And this is part of looking at how to finance universal health coverage. Something else in the regulations says that, and I shall read it, every person above 18 years of age shall be a registered contributor or beneficiary when seeking government services. Translate. You're seeking government services, you shall be a member of NHIF. Which means you're seeking government services, you will show proof that you're a member of NHIF to receive government services. One of the ways of encouraging everybody to contribute towards this universal health coverage.
That isn't encouragement, that's coercion.
Wow.
It is encouragement.
It's coercion. It's called arm twisting. The moment you talk about government services, my friend, you are talking about literally every movement you want to make. Where is it that you're not going to require government services? And if you take that particular, the understanding of that statement literally, it means you can't even call the police when you're in trouble.
Literally.
Yes.
Look, anything that you want to do, whether your children,
You
you're
call
looking
police, they ask you, "Uko na
NHIF. Yes, that's what you
you
ask
want to
first.
go fill a P3, you want to get an OB, whatever filled out, you can't do that. You want to take your children to get their official results. So that
Official
you can
results.
Go to a school.
Inoculation,
You can't have it.
vaccination,
You
what
want to
have
get
you.
vaccinated,
You
you
commit a
can't do
crime,
that.
they can't even jail you in a government jail.
Well, that might be a good thing.
That's a
no?
government service. You can't access government service.
Or be fed as a prisoner. Listen. So it touches on everything that you do, essentially.
Yes.
So that I think, and that's the thing, that it would pose as an inconvenience if you did not have this thing. So the convenient and more comfortable approach would be, you know what, just get the card, let's offer you these services, and then we get along having a jolly old time.
Actually, think about it a little more and ask yourself, how do you incentivize your people to understand this particular product so that they welcome it and they embrace it and they take it as something that they welcome.
Want to do.
Yes.
Or that they had it's not now that you have to do, but that you get to do.
Yes. There's a government attitude that with everything you have, it must be you don't at your
Or
own
else.
peril. Now, surely, there are disadvantages not taking up some of these things. But must it be uttered as a threat?
That's the only way
You can actually point out the disadvantages without making the threat. In our case, it's always a threat.
So I hear what you're saying essentially is that you should be able to share with people that should you have this account, then there's
Go on.
Have you finished laughing?
You just started. You mean finish?
Guys, catching.
I'm catching feelings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unakula ndimu nini? Si usikize tu.
Hizi ndimu hii ni pilipili nimeshika.
Ndu?
I don't even know what I was saying, but it has flown out the window. Continue.
Okay, let me just put this out here clearly. If you go to the website nhif.or.ke, that's nhif.or.ke, they've published these draft regulations, all right? And they're asking the public to submit their views on this, and that's why we are starting this conversation. Submission of memoranda, stakeholders engagement, public hearing, and invitation for public participation on the draft regulations to the National Health Insurance Fund Act of 1998, amended in 2022. There are several regulations. One is the National Health Insurance Fund Beneficiary Identification Regulations. 2, it's NHIF Contribution Regulations. 3, NHIF Member Registration Regulations. 4, NHIF Empanelment and Contracting Regulations. And NHIF Claims and Benefits Regulations. You have a couple of days to do this until the 7th of March 2022 at 5 p.m. basically to give your views on this. And that's why we're starting with one. The first one is on, so how do we get as many people as possible to be members of NHIF? The government is saying everybody above 18 shall be a member of NHIF. Sindio? One of those regulations says that you shall be a member of NHIF when seeking government services. And this is where City Muga takes pilipili, eats it raw. Why?
You see, it is not this particular statement that gets my goat. It is something you see replicated in very many pronouncements that perhaps we, the media, misrepresent, but which gets to the heart of the sentiment and how it is the government seems to wish to communicate things to their citizenry. Okay? This NHIF thing is a good thing. The universal healthcare system is a wonderful thing. That people should automatically be enrolled into it is an equally good thing. In fact, that people who earn more should pay more, I agree with completely. I have no quarrel with it. It's like with taxation. You earn more, you pay more. I have no quarrel with it. My quarrel is this. When you seem to think that any communication that you have with people has to take some form of a threat, that is my problem.
There's a punishment that comes. You must register for NHIF, and if you don't register, 20,000 shillings fine.
See?
Then, to encourage you to use, to register as NHIF, we say that when you are seeking government services, you will need to show that you are a member of NHIF.
See? How many rights as a citizen of this country, how many of my rights are being trampled on just by those very statements?
Look, I even agree that it should be made mandatory. I do agree. I think that everybody should be part of this pool so that you make this coverage then possible for everybody. What I do not agree with is now denying people where their rights are actually falling, the basic rights that they should have as citizens of this country are falling in right there. That's my issue. That there must be, I am sure, under the sun, there must be other ideas that you can use to get people to be encouraged to join the scheme. This is it. Not to say that we've made it mandatory and should you not do this, this is how we are going to make life just a little bit more uncomfortable for you. That's my problem. That there must be other ways in which you can. We talked about Huduma number this morning with the Estonians and what have they done. It is mandatory, yes, but okay, what are we going to do to make it, to sweeten the deal for you? You will then get a tax rebate. Get your number, we'll make it a little bit easier and put some money in your pocket. There are ways you can incentivize people to do something without making it punitive. There are ways that you can do this. And this is the problem whereby government refuses to be creative, whereby you refuse to think about other methods that you can use to get people to buy into this idea. Because, look, you're not forcing people to do this thing so that they can take the cards and sit down at home with them. No. You're getting them to buy into this idea that you can then have this coverage that everybody then can access, and it's going to be a little bit cheaper or more comfortable on the pocket for you. So it begs creativity. It begs ideas that you can now come and say, okay, folks, get this card. Look at the benefits. When have we, in all of these draft measures of regulation, is there anything, Eric, that says, this is what it means when you have this card? You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there?
Yeah? I will repeat the question, sorry.
Is there anything in those, what are you calling them? Regulations?
Draft regulations.
That is sharing information, communicating the benefits of having this card.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Yes.
What are those benefits?
There are several regulations here. There's a regulation on membership, regulations on contributions, regulations on benefits and the service providers, regulations on payment and contracting of service providers. So one of those regulations then talks about, so what do you get to access and how shall NHIF contract the various service providers, read hospitals, so that you can access the services. Yes.
Okay. So it tells you what you can have. I think now those are things that need to be highlighted. Because right now, with the current communication, the only thing anybody is seeing is 20,000 shillings and as a fine or as a penalty that I will pay. And then also the penalty if I don't pay on 1 month. That is all anybody's seeing. And it's mandatory. Okay, I need to have this card. It's not that I have this card and it'll be beneficial to me health-wise.
But you see, that's not because of NHIF.
It doesn't come about.
That is because of what the media, for example, the Standard this morning has chosen to highlight. The NHIF, when it's been taking up full-page adverts, they've been talking about the benefits of universal health coverage. Universal health coverage, the benefits, giving case studies, even on TV, giving case studies. I was unwell, but I had NHIF, and this is what I was able to access, and I went to hospital. NHIF's communication is basically focusing more on the benefits.
It doesn't take away from the fact that the threat looms over your head that should you not have the card, this is going to happen. It doesn't take away from that.
But let's come back to the point that you made, which is you agree and you support the idea of it being mandatory. Number one.
Buy-in.
Sindio?
I agree.
So if it's mandatory means that what if you are not contributing? Everybody else is contributing, but this one person has chosen not to.
Have they chosen not to? Have they chosen not to? Or could there be extenuating circumstances that don't allow them to?
Extenuating circumstances have already been identified in the regulations and even in the law. Okay? Number one, you are an elderly person. You are living with severe disability. Or you have been identified by the Social Protection Department of government as a person who does not have an income. And so therefore you need support from the government. You know what you get? You become a member. It's just that the government is contributing for you.
What if at the time that I took it, I was okay, and then the next month I lost my job and I was not able to?
Go to the National Employment Authority. You get that. The regulation is there. Somebody who is not employed can be, let me read it, can be a voluntary member. And these are which regulations? Voluntary contributions. An unemployed person shall be eligible as a voluntary contributor if the person A has obtained a recommendation from the National Employment Authority indicating that the person is unemployed, B is not categorized as an indigent or vulnerable person by the State Department responsible for social protection, and is not a beneficiary. See? So those loopholes have been covered. Here we are saying, so what do we do for this person is not in the category that we have classified as indigent? This person is not a beneficiary, and the beneficiary here would be like you've just turned 18, you're still living within a parent, or you have been paid for by somebody in your household who says, I am paying for me, and these are the beneficiaries in the list. What do we do to that person? It's a mandatory scheme. You say that person, they will then be penalized. That sounds very perfectly in order to me.
It does, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
If this person is not contributing to NHIF, which is a mandatory scheme, why is it mandatory? It's because we are looking at the bigger picture, providing universal health coverage for everybody. City Muga is not contributing.
You know,
what do? We penalize City Muga, and we say it shall not exceed 20,000 shillings a penalty. Okay.
I understand what you're saying, but let me look at a different government agency that had a similar attitude towards communicating to their people, KRA. When KRA wrote you a letter, simply indicating that you hadn't met certain obligations, you could actually fall sick.
And then you need NHIF.
Yeah, that letter would apply more pressure than you could imagine. Now, over the years, KRA has endeavored to actually have a partnership attitude towards the taxpayer.
Yeah.
And they've gone out of their way, literally out of their way, to explain things and say, folks, come, let's talk about this. Huh? You don't need to run away. No. Just come. We come with all those problems that you have, and let us see how we can find a way. And they've continuously communicated it.
Yes.
So that discussion has taken center stage.
Yes.
The penalties haven't gone away.
Exactly.
They haven't gone away.
On paper, the penalty is there. If you do not file your returns, payee returns by what date is it? Is it the 7th or the 9th?
Yes.
Penalty kicks in.
Yes.
If you don't file your tax returns, 20th, penalty kicks in.
It does.
And it starts accruing interest.
Yes.
It does.
But
now, when they come later and they say, okay, so we have noticed that there are so many people who have, penalties and they're accruing interest. What we do is let's have an RRI. For the next 3 months, come, we talk. We shall not take away the penalty. We shall take away the interest. And then we work out how you can pay.
You see,
it works.
You see, Eric, you've got.
But that's at the implementation stage. Here we are not at implementation stage. Here we are at drafting the regulations.
Yes. If you're to learn from your experience, from these experiences, why did KRA take that soft approach? It's because it communicates partnership. That is my interpretation of it. It means, look, folks, we're in this thing together and there's no running away from it, okay? But so that we understand you and you also understand us, because we need to collect this money from you in order to get things working. But let's find a way of ensuring that if you're not able to, there's a path we can follow to enable you to also participate in this process.
Because if we continue in the manner in which we have been over the last however long, we find that we suffer, you suffer.
Yes.
We're not able to meet what we should meet. You obviously are not feeling comfortable, and even understanding that here you have a duty to get this thing sorted out.
Yeah.
So it's clear that we need to find some kind of middle ground to get this thing sorted. But it is a conversation.
Yes, at implementation. Guys, let's just be clear. At implementation, the conversation comes in. This is the point of, we are talking about regulations.
I agree.
The regulation, even for KRA, like you've said, CT, penalty there, interest there. That one is there on paper. This is the penalty for not meeting these regulations.
You see,
when it comes to implementation, the onus is on the implementing agency now to find out ways of customer relations and customer support. Today, with NHIF, if you have not been paying NHIF and you want to come and use services, they have all those programs that they say, okay, so we have X number of people who are active contributors, X number of people who are registered members, but they're not active contributors. They come up with those programs. Pay now, we are waiving the penalty. Pay now, we are doing... Those conversations keep happening on the implementation of the current
Eric, and I'm saying, don't wait until we're implementing these things to have that conversation. Even if you're making the discussion, let some of these things that I consider good conversation to take place even as you're discussing, even as you're publicly participating.
So how else shall you say it? That the penalty for not contributing to NHIF shall be 20,000 shillings.
No.
Lakini unaweza kuja tuongee.
No. The very same information that we have, it's prioritizing what you're going to highlight and making sure that you use every avenue possible for people to understand that even though there is a penalty, and there must be a penalty, okay? There are all these other benefits. I am simply saying that communication, all that information, the packaging, make the packaging easier to absorb. If we, the media, the ones who are to blame, then we must be censured and we must be told, folks, can you please give a balanced communication of this of this information? Because you seem to be highlighting what is considered to be punitive. Can you highlight? And I'm saying, no. The onus is on the people who want this information portrayed or relayed. It is them. They are the ones who must push this agenda and say, folks, let's come to an understanding as to why we need to do A, B, C, D.
And that I'm saying, it's the media. Blame it on the media.
No, I'm not going to blame it on the media.
Because NHIF itself, if you even go to their Twitter handle at NHIF Kenya, the kind of messaging that they have put here, and there are various video messages and adverts, they're even taking out these messages onto media. They are buying advertising space. They are talking about the benefits of NHIF. The focus is the benefits of NHIF, the future and how it looks like. What does it mean when you are a member of NHIF and you're a contributor? I'm looking at one here which is talking about an NHIF beneficiary, and it's a small, nice video clip. 1 minute, 47 seconds. This is just one. Very many. Hashtag afya yangu bila stress, afya yangu faida kwa jamii, NHIF cares. The communication that NHIF is rolling out is we are on universal health coverage. NHIF is playing a critical role in universal health coverage, and this is the future and how it looks like and the benefits of using, and case studies. Somebody saying, I had NHIF and my family went through this and this is how it helped us. That's their communication. The other side, which must also be talked about, is this. Now, of course, because we are looking at, what are you talking about? It's going to be very expensive for those who are earning 100,000 shillings and above to contribute to NHIF. It's going to be very punitive for people who do not contribute to NHIF because they'll be penalized 20,000 shillings. You will need to be an NHIF member when you're accessing government services. So this is what it did. This is us. NHIF is not saying all these things. It's put down the regulations, but the regulations must have a carrot and stick. It's 9:30. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the traffic. Peter Kioni is complaining about Nairobi on Uhuru Highway. Kenyatta Avenue, Uhuru Highway Junction is now becoming a nightmare. 40 minutes in traffic. I know, man. That section between Haile Selassie Avenue and Museum Hill is just madness.
Absolute
madness. But let's take a look at traffic and see how is it looking this morning at this particular time. We'll be back shortly. We want to hear from you as well. 0719-012-600. Do you agree with some of these regulations that are being proposed by the NHIF?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people.
these young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
See, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice. Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The sun is out in Nairobi, 20 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 16. Partly sunny at 20 in Nakuru, highs of 29 and lows of 14. 11 will be the low in a partly sunny Nyeri, 17 at the moment, going to highs of 28. And it's sunny in Eldoret at 18. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 11. In Mombasa, it's sunny at 29, highs of 32 and lows of 25. Cloudy conditions in a previously rainy Malindi, highs of 31 and lows of 26. It's sunny at 24 in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's sunny at 23. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 15. Kampala, raining. Heavy thunderstorms abated at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 19. While in Dar es Salaam, it's mostly cloudy at 27. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 25. It's raining in Lagos now at 28, highs of 33 and lows of 26. While sunny in Johannesburg at 21. We'll go to highs of 27 and lows of 15. It's now mostly cloudy in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 33 and lows of 23. Looking into Beijing into early evening Thursday, -2 and sunny. We'll see highs of 0 and lows of -7. It's mostly cloudy in Paris at 11, going to highs of 13. We'll see lows of 9 and 8 degrees, and a rainy London, highs of 12. New York is cloudy at 7. Wednesday night coming into Thursday, highs of 14 and lows of 6.
Spice up your life.
Right, so that Huru Highway is doing its thing. I'm looking at the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, how that's quite clogged. All the roundabouts along the way contributing to this traffic and getting out towards Westlands today. So it's not pretty. And it's going to take some time to get out of this one, folks. So you have to hang tight. Unless, of course, you make the decision to go into Upper Hill if you're coming from Mombasa Road, or then take the long way into the city if you're coming from Westlands. Think about it. It might help. And you don't sit in traffic for 3 hours. Yes? Yes. Okay, coming off Mombasa Road doesn't look too bad right now. The ICD route going on to the Southern Bypass, probably a better option for you. Let's keep an eye on things through the morning. Help us out here, guys. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
it's
right.
24 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. So, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, the Honorable Senator Muthui Kagwe, EGH, has published several pieces of regulations that bring to life the new NHIF Act. Those regulations have been published on the NHIF website, nhif.or.ke, and the NHIF is seeking public participation and comments between the moment they publish them up to the 7th of March 2022. The regulations are the National NHIF Beneficiary Identification Regulations, NHIF Contribution Regulations, NHIF Member Registration Regulations, NHIF Empanelment and Contracting Regulations, NHIF Claims and Benefits Regulations. The last one, the Claims and Benefits Regulations, talks about the benefits that you get when you're a member of NHIF. The Empanelment and Contracting Regulations talks about how NHIF shall identify and contract hospitals that then will be receiving money from NHIF for offering services to NHIF members. The NHIF member registration regulations talks about you as a member and your obligations as a member on how to get registered, and also NHIF's requirements to register or deregister you as a member. Contributions regulations talks about how much you shall contribute, depending on your category in the social stratum, your station in life. And the beneficiary identification regulations talks about, so you are an NHIF member, you're a beneficiary, how do you access the services? Let's look at one of the requirements in the NHIF contributions regulations. And I shall read. And this particular section says, it has disappeared, that every person, and this is section 18 of these regulations, every person above 18 years of age shall be a registered contributor or beneficiary when seeking government services. Shall be when seeking. Basically, it says that if you are not a registered contributor or beneficiary to NHIF seeking government services, you will not get access to government services. Okay? See, Amma, what's your translation interpretation of what I've just read?
Question.
Does it say the same thing? Every person above 18 shall be a contributor or beneficiary when seeking government services. It means if you are not either of those two, you will not receive government services.
Yes, that if you go to seek government services and you do not have your NHIF accreditation, you will not be able to access.
Okay.
Period.
Some other part of the member registration regulations. The object of these regulations is to ensure that every person who has attained the age of 18 years and is a resident in Kenya is registered as a member of the fund, which means now that NHIF membership is compulsory. Okay? Everybody must be a member of NHIF.
Okay.
And everybody must contribute to NHIF.
Okay.
If you are not a member of NHIF, the penalty shall not exceed 20,000 shillings. There's a penalty for not being a member. Now, is this the best way of enforcing the new NHIF law?
I don't think so. Because look, let me tell you, for free. Now, going forward, even if all this noise that we're making right now, talking about it, and it still sails through, they will have a conversation moving forward about peeling back on this thing that they've said today. That is the way you're going to be able to bring this thing about. Is not going to work. I can tell you now that it won't work. Deny people services because they've not taken this card. I think that there are other ways in which you can encourage people to do it. I do agree that because we can't just look at NHIF now and then the delivery of delivery of healthcare services. It is on the back of UHC that it is the vehicle through which UHC will be delivered. And the only way to do that is to have an adequate enough pool where everybody is contributing so that you can have this universal coverage so that when anybody goes anywhere, they will be able to get health at their fingertips. So I do agree that the more people that you have in the pool is what is going to bring this to life. People left to their own will not make the decision to join the pool. You must bring them in. People sitting on their own, twiddling their thumbs and say, okay, shall I do it today or not? No. In order to have that, you have to kind of force the situation.
There has to be some enforcement.
And exactly.
Okay.
However, will you then deny them in a manner that would trot on the rights that they have guaranteed to them by being citizens of the country? It's difficult. Because by saying this, you inevitably trot on those rights.
So this part of the regulation is unconstitutional,
it is,
in your opinion?
Come on, because they're basic things that people are guaranteed by virtue of them being citizens. Now, when you say that you're going to deny them certain things, for example, what are you going to do? Somebody needs to go, for example, and change the number of their child who needs to move school because in this other school, the child was being abused and needs to move, and you don't have NHIF, you will be denied. Education is a right of children. Do you see what I'm saying? There are very many grey lines that people can then decide, hair-splitting things that they're going to go and pick up and say, you know what?
You can't enroll your child to kindergarten.
God, what are you going to do? The school, they need...
Your parent and your...
Take it to basics. You can't
Very
even
basic.
you can't even have a child inoculated.
Yeah.
Or you cannot actually access
Yes, when you go to get
maternity
vaccinations
services.
in the public
Yes.
service, they ask for that card and it's a government service. You don't have. My friend, there's nowhere you're going. Right. It is a right. And that's what I'm saying. It's hair splitting, but you're trotting on the rights that citizens are guaranteed constitutionally. They're guaranteed. No question of maybe can we. No.
And if you think about it, given the resources that the government has in terms of personnel, in terms of just people with clear thought processes, this is a lazy way of dealing with this thing.
Be more creative, my
Surely,
friend.
for
There are
heaven's
ways
sake,
in which you
you
can do
know
this thing.
what you want to achieve.
That's what-
You have a good thing here. It's
They-
going to benefit people. Then why do you want to muddy the waters?
Exactly. And then why wait 10 months to have the conversation when you can have it now? Because I'm telling you, as sure as I'm sitting here today, this thing that we're saying, the conversation will be had. The conversation will be had. Okay, how can we now make this a little bit? It'll be had. So why not just nip it in the bud and do it now? It's coming. Court injunction, those words are about
Since
to
you're
be-
having-
They're coming.
Since this is going to court.
Since you're having this conversation and publicly participating, okay, can you not also publicly ask folks?
What do you think? How do we
get all of you to actually register without us threatening you with things which definitely must happen if you don't register?
How shall we punish you?
I think that's
to
what
be
they're
more
doing here.
comfortably?
They've said, our suggestion is that we force you to register by denying you services. What do you think?
Yes. How can we force you without you feeling very uncomfortable?
How can we step on you just a little bit?
Bit,
And
yes.
it's a little bit. It's comfortable for
For you, without you kicking
Come
too
and
much of a
tell
fuss.
us.
Yes, tell us.
And by the way, you only have until the 7th of March. And if by then you've not told us anything,
9 days and counting, 18 days rather, 18 days and counting for you to submit your thoughts on these proposed regulations.
it's not guaranteed that we'll take them into consideration, but we will have them.
But tell us.
Look, if you feel that this is trampling on your rights and you want to go and take it to court, obviously, this is the same Muthui who said, you don't have the vaccine. Government services. No. It seems like this is the one thing that Muthui is sure about.
Within 24 hours, what happened? Within 24
Court.
hours, that thing was halted. It's the same.
It's the same Muthui Kagwe who has brought it now from
You're asking the
to
question.
NHIF.
You people have tried 4 times. You didn't learn. Now
it-
you're using the same method. You've not learned. You've not learned.
Is it also possible
In such a litigious society.
Is it also possible to have other people who perhaps can say the same thing without causing so much ire? Because one, I remember the Huduma number. The person who first of all mentioned these things was the CS, one Mr. Dr. Matiang'i. Okay, Phew, God Almighty. You know, all these measures, all these schemes are good. Without a shadow of a doubt, they're actually wonderful schemes.
Yes.
But my friend, you present them in this way. Resistance which you don't need.
And it's not that the people
And
who
then
are
it delays
resisting you
implementation of
exactly,
the
and it's
whole
not
process.
as though the people who are resisting you don't get it. Majority of people understand, but the manner in which you bring it to them, they will refuse for refusal's sake. They will come at you and they will say, no, because of the way you presented it to us. After all, when you're looking at change, half of the work is done by how you're communicating it. Half, 50%, you either make or break by the manner in which you choose to communicate this thing.
Yes, at the
And
heart-
I'm saying that court injunction, court order thing that we're saying, why don't you just avoid it now?
Because you can.
Because it is coming.
You can. You know, this attitude that these simple Kenyans must be coerced, pushed, threatened.
Corralled.
Yes.
Made to enter into the stable.
Surely.
Come.
I mean, the way you say things, as Ndu has so eloquently put it, is often at the heart of everything that we do. This storm that we are now dealing with, apology notwithstanding from our deputy president, in a Kenyan context, you're talking to fellow Kenyans. If you see such things, it's Kenyans talking to each other. Okay? We get you. We know exactly what you're saying. You're stretching an issue, we get it. But you can't say the same thing about another independent nation within your region and think that people are just going to gloss over it and say, oh, you know, it was said in jest.
What a
No,
nice joke.
It'll be read as ridicule, and you're ridiculing an entire nation and its people. And yet, as a Kenyan, if we're talking among ourselves, we know exactly where this is coming from. You can even interpret it and say, oh, that's what he said. All right. So, all right. Okay, when he says there are no cows, okay, how many cows did he actually mean? How many cows equals no cows? Okay? So among ourselves.
Yeah.
But you take it outside that context, it's a horrible thing to say. So in the same way, you know full well that we've understood the independence of our institutions and we know how independent our courts are. We are going to go to court.
Wait now. That's what I'm telling you. Avoid it now. I said the same ministry is the one they don't remember. November last year, they said, if you don't do this, menene, we'll say, okay, somebody said it's very good. Wait for me. By tomorrow, they said, you people are not doing this thing. Oh. If you like, vaccinate. If you like, don't vaccinate. At the end of the day, we're telling you, we will not do. Tell us in a way that even if what you're telling me is right, I know it's right, you know it's right, we both know that we know it's right. But the way you're going to come at me, my friend, I will refuse. For the sake of refusing.
Simply because I feel disrespected.
Now, the same ministry has not learned. Not less than 3 months later, you're coming to use the same method. Why?
You know, this ministry needs to be careful. You know why? You mentioned, we start telling you, okay, we get you. So this is how you want to go about it.
Nisawa.
Okay, have you solved the MES problem? You just that we can have a conversation, and it's the same ministry.
Let's start from there.
Yeah, let's start from there. We're not going to go further back, but this one here. Yeah, okay? Okay, if that one is too far in the background and a lot of time has passed by, let's just talk about KEMSA, okay? So, have you resolved these KEMSA issues?
Where are we with that?
Yes. So, you are inviting conversations that are not necessary. Because you have a good thing, it's something that will benefit the citizenry, and then here you are muddying the waters.
And you're casting a negative image on the thing, and the people are not looking at the benefits of this program.
So by this one clause, it basically just negates everything else that the regulations are seeking to do.
You invite a lot of unnecessary conversation that now delves into certain things, and anything that we may have had against this ministry comes to the fore.
Yes, no.
Even if it's completely relevant to this conversation.
We'll bring it in.
We'll
nicely.
bring it in.
After all, Eric, you're asking, so this one thing here, how many apples does it take to spoil the bunch?
They say it's one, but it depends.
No, actually, you know, I never understood why they said that until...
You have your fruit basket and you see the one
that has I actually experimented with it and I realized, it is very
it's
true.
Very true.
You can't put apples with other fruits.
No, you can't.
Apples you put separately.
They'll rot the other ones as well.
The clause in question here is on clause on the regulations for members' contributions. Every person above 18 years of age shall be a registered contributor or beneficiary of NHIF when seeking government services. Translate.
When
you
you're
will
not
get
seeking
government
services
if
and
you are not
anyone
a
who is in a
contributor or beneficiary.
People who are in position of authority listening to this and saying, you see these media people, what's wrong with them? Kwani, what do they want us to do? To give them ice cream in order to accept this thing?
Yes.
We're saying, no, folks.
We like ice cream.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Yes.
We can give you
okay, give them ice cream which doesn't have milk.
Fruit ice.
Lactose free.
Yeah, lactose free ice cream. The thing is, this whole conversation that we have with our government and with people in authority, we must find a way of communicating in a way that is less abrasive, that is less contentious, and yet takes into account the very information that you want to pass across.
We keep giving the example of the Swiss. They're in government. They're building a huge road across the country, essentially. It remains for them to bed down and lie down and ask the Swiss people, please, can we build this road for you?
It's your road.
It's your road. But please, will you allow us to do it? It's not that the people don't understand that this thing is beneficial to them. But you know what? How about you speak to us in a manner? Because at the end of the day, it is our money, number one. Number two, we understand that it is for our benefit, but you work for us. So how about you come and talk to us in a manner that we will then all understand? Don't you want to come and shout at us and say, now, if we don't build this road, then in fact... Then what happened after that?
We'll actually just tell you,
go ahead and
as
build
we speak, we don't have the road, okay? So, essentially, you are asking us what we think about the status quo. Well, we don't have the road, so,
So where are we?
What are you asking?
Yes.
What are you asking? Yeah.
Eric, if you consider just for a single second, if we lived in a country where we couldn't give examples or where beautiful communication has worked, then we'd say, we've never had it. But we have had it. We've had departments and agencies of government that take the time and bother and thought process to actually say, how best do we communicate this so that everybody understands it? Okay? Central Bank would have just said, guys, you know something? You've got 20 days in which to change these notes. Otherwise,
if you don't, you lose your money. And that's
you are going to use it for lighting a jiko. Okay?
Right.
Simple. No, did they? No.
No.
Man, They went to town to the point where even if you didn't want to hear the message, you heard it. Even if you didn't want to understand it, you understood it.
Did you hear anybody going to court to say that they are going to try and stop the central
No.
bank from changing the currency?
They could have, but they didn't.
Someone tried to go to court and said they were caught off guard.
How well did that go?
How far did that one go with the off-guardness?
Caught off guard, and they had been singing this song for 6 months. How well did it go? We have a beautiful example here of how the noose was hanging over their head with the Huduma number. They could say that they got 37 million people. That's fantastic. How well is that going now?
Since 2018,
Process
we are
has
still
been
making
stopped.
laws.
So what is it? How about you had the person who went to stop this thing in court? Do you think it's because they didn't see that this Huduma number thing was not good?
They knew it was a good
They knew
thing.
It was a good thing. But the process through which you want to go through this thing, how about you refine it just a little bit and make it a little bit more amiable towards the people? Is there something wrong with that? Or do you think that it shows weakness? It doesn't. It
You
shows
see,
strength.
all these processes that they've had to undergo are the very processes that you need to set up such a sensitive thing.
Should have started with them.
Yes,
Allah.
because essentially you've shown the public that, right, we are going to protect you, we are going to do this, we are going to ensure that all these things, to the point of getting this bill now,
Yep.
which focuses specifically on Huduma number.
And it's a brilliant thing.
But we're working backwards.
If lessons
It's the
are
same
to be
thing
learned.
with NHIF here.
Yes.
With universal health coverage, we are starting by forcing people to contribute.
Yes.
And then now it
You
okay
come and tell
now.
them later, you know what it's for, actually.
Now we need to build hospitals. You see, Oparanya has done an 8 billion shilling structure in Kakamega.
And now it's a shell.
Now it's a shell. Now we need to complete it so that we can have more than one KNH in Kenya. One another will be called Kakamega National.
Whatever. National Hospital.
You are in Tana River County. You do not have a single ICU facility.
Not one. Not one solitary. Not
Yes.
one.
But you are being forced to pay to contribute to NHIF. You don't have the enough number of just health centers in the villages.
Then you want to deny me services because I don't have the NHIF. They will ask you, how has the NHIF helped me? Even if I have the card and here I'm in the county, I'm a pregnant woman, I'm going to have a child, there's no way they can do C-section for me. What are we talking about? And this is what I'm saying. Do you know how many reasons anybody who wants to go to court today would have validated to be able to come against this thing? Do you know? Across country. Anybody in anywhere can stand up and say, you people are forcing me to join this health scheme. Please, can I show you what happened to me last year? 1, 2, 3. That's enough for an injunction to be brought about and say, okay, stop. So how about you get it right from the beginning so that
Sort
we
it
avoid
out.
all this mess?
Sort it out.
You know, at the heart of this thing is the attitude that those in leadership and those we employ to be in leadership and those we pay for in government have. They are our bosses.
Yes.
And so they are the ones who tell us when to jump and how to jump and how high to jump.
Yes.
And that's really what we're seeing. And we're saying, folks, let's get this right. This relationship, you've got it. It's lopsided. We are the ones who are killing your bosses, folks. Yes. And we're fairly gentle folks. Okay, and gentle bosses. Okay, so can we just get this relationship right and then let's move forward?
Get access to the draft NHIF regulations that have been published. They are on the NHIF website, nhif.or.ke. You've got until the 7th of March. Just go through them, all right? It's important at least that we all participate in some of these things. When we're saying no, we are saying no to something that we have gone through, read, and we have avenues of saying no. Let's talk about protecting our children from identity theft and online fraud.
So we said we want to look at some of those tips, right? So what are some things that you can do actually to protect yourself on the internet and your child from identity theft? Set rules for online behavior, especially for social media sites, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Snapchat. Tell your child not to post anything other than his or her name. So no address, no phone number, no photos or documents such as school ID, passports, or school names, tags, and logos. None of that could identify who you are. Children need to be made wary of clicking on malicious links or downloading files. So the rule of thumb is, if you don't know what it is, don't touch it on the internet, especially, right? Tell your child to look out for people who ask probing questions. Where do you live? How old are you? Do you live with your parents? That kind of thing. If the person seems to be snooping or spying or is in any way invasive, The word is run. Assure your child that not responding is not rude. It's the right thing to do. Identity thieves use emails, they use texts, they use fraudulent websites to phish, and that's PHISH for identity information. Teach them how to handle identity-filled documents. Show them what to do. Show them what is safe to do and what is not. If there's a threat, run.
It's important, and we have a role as parents to do this. Now, you can report any case that you come across. Let's say a child has come to you and told you, hey, Mom or Dad, there's somebody who's asking me all these kind of questions. Somebody who's asking me to upload a photo. Somebody who's asking me to take a video of our house and send to them. Or asking me what our house number is and where we live. You can report to any of these agencies. For example, the government of the Republic of Kenya. And what website is that?
Incidents. Okay, that's the email.
That's email. Wow.
So we're looking at it. So it's GOK. Visit the website GOK. Then there's a team coordination center. As well as Childline Kenya. We'd have to go to each and every one of these sites. See the addresses. But yeah.
You can go to the Cradle, the Children Foundation, look for them on their website, or the Childline Kenya website, or you can go to the Kenya Association of Professional Counselors, or the Department of Children's Services, or the government itself, or the Communications Authority Team Coordinating Center for all this. Get all this information on www.ca.go.ke. That's www.ca.go.ke. It's important that we keep our children safe when using the internet. Time for us to hear the day's proverb.
Right, indeed. Very simply, the water in the river flows on without waiting for a thirsty person.
Who's the water? Who's the thirsty person? Who's the river?
More specifically, who is the who?
Or who do you want to be? Which of these ones do you want to be? The river, the water, the thirsty person? Choose. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today. Join us again tomorrow. It's Friday, and we said Healthy Fridays is one of the conversations we'll be having to discuss matters on health in the country. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. tomorrow. Have a lovely day, folks. It's now 10 o'clock.